At the session, Nikita will formally introduce you with your permission.
Sure.
And a lot of students whom you have been teaching at the PG level or in the social media management course would have joined the program, the session. So I look forward to a very interesting session. And over to Nikita.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Our next speaker for the day is Miss Smita Deshmukh. Ms. Smita Deshmukh is a journalist for the past 22 years and has worked as an editor for Bombay Times and as an executive director for Next Level Media. As a senior editor at DNA, she has written several articles under current affairs and business. She has always managed to raise the bar with her storytelling skills and creative writing and is currently excelling in sports and media communication. I am sure most of our students know ma'am has also been associated with the Department of Mass Media as a visiting faculty at the UG level and PG level. In the past, she has conducted sessions for sports management for our department, and currently she is also conducting a session for social media management for the department. Ma'am is going to speak about importance of digital media literacy in sports, PR, and marketing communication. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you, Nikita. So, should I start, Manjula ma'am? Yeah. So I was thinking of instead of me talking, I collated a special presentation for the students. As we move into the finale of the India-England T20 series, and it is going to be a very long, what can you say, sport calendar for India. So let us look at where we are post-pandemic. Okay. It's a small presentation which I thought would help me make you understand where we are at this stage of the sports industry and how digital literacy is actually taking the bar forward. Okay. Students, the India story about sport is something we need to understand. I'm going to look at India's story around 2000 till 2000 and how dramatically things changed for India in sports. I would say around 2004-5. So till 2000, India was looked upon as a country with just one sport. We were the one sport country. Okay, we were obsessed with cricket. Whatever money which was coming in the sports industry was coming in cricket. Also, it's interesting to know that till a decade ago, many people who wanted to invest in sports looked at sports as a loss-making industry. I mean, can you believe it? Okay, India did not, and I would say now partially has what we call as a sporting culture. But those days, again, I'm saying 2000, life before 2004 and life after 2004, we were looked at because there's a lack of sporting culture in India, the growth trajectory could be low. And Indian sports industry did not have a industry status. So whatever the money which was coming in the sporting industry in India was largely to certain corporates saying, okay, I have CSR funds, so might as well give it to sports. Okay, I have some money at the end of my financial year. What should I do? Should I sponsor an event? Is there a hockey tournament going on? Can I sponsor that? That was the attitude vis-a-vis India. Okay, but meanwhile, at the global level, this is what was happening, or this is exactly what's happening. It's a $600 billion industry. It's an industry which is moving around events, infrastructure, clubs. When I use the word clubs, means various sporting clubs. The nomenclature of clubs is what they use abroad. And the apparel industry. And most importantly, in 2020, 2021, we should look at the absolute unmitigated growth of fans. Okay, so as of now, it's a very complex business structure in sports where you have it's around the rights of the owners, the clubs, the leagues, the federations, the athletes, the sponsors, the broadcasters. They are all amongst themselves fighting at the global level to get a pie of this 600 billion US dollars. Okay, so it's a very complex structure and things go up and down. So there are years in which the federations make. So if it is an Olympic year, of course the federations will make more money than the club level. Okay, but look at the global numbers we are talking about today. $600 billion is something nobody can afford to ignore. Okay, but in India, things changed in 2007 when the first Indian Premier League started. I want to go back to 2004-5 because that was also the time that the Z Group initiated what was called as the ISL, you know, and it was an independent league. The BCCI almost smelled money, and BCCI smelled a business opportunity and quickly took over, ensured that the ISL never really took off, and started the IPL, which was, as you say, somebody says abroad always, it's a very strange and an extraordinary cocktail of sports and entertainment. But the success of the IPL goes into its absolutely strong marketing. Nothing ever in these last, I would say 14, 15 years now, that IPL has ever stopped. Not even the pandemic can, make IPL stop. Please remember in 2020, not a single global tournament took place. There was no Wimbledon, there was no Australian Open, okay, EPL very, very, it's at a very, very short level, but look at the IPL. The IPL actually took place, okay? And the success of the IPL goes into its absolute strong marketing, the presence of contemporary top players, okay? An absolute unending fan base. And, every year, um, there has been, whenever people ask me from abroad, I said, what this league has not, this is not a league which has suffered from any particular crisis. Every particular crisis in the world, this league has suffered, but it has still survived. So survival of the fittest, and that is what the IPL means. It is a game changer in the business and the communication of the Indian sport industry. So what is it now? We are growing. It's remarkable for us to see that we are growing at the rate of 15%. Okay, the global rate, average rate is 5%. Okay, we have post IPL many leagues. We have a Premier Kabaddi League, we have a football league, we have a Premier Badminton League. There is a league has already come in volleyball. Our hockey league has been restructured. So there is an absolute epic level of resurgence of sports in India. And the Star India chief, who is predicting that the India sports economy another 2 years is going to be $1 billion mark. That's a lot. Of course, we are far behind China, but our trajectory is up, up, up. And the pandemic may have slowed it down a bit, but our overall trajectory is up. And I just wanted to tell you where the money is going. Now, if you look at the extreme left side of your screen, and you look at the numbers, because those are the numbers which perhaps you will be able to understand in the INR. Ground sponsorship, team sponsorship, franchisees making money, endorsement for athletes, and media spends. Media spends would be media coming out and spending on advertising and marketing. Everywhere the growth trajectory is just jumping. Okay, from 3511 to 4065, that's a lot. Okay, media spends. I mean, even the franchisees never ever thought that they're going to make. Every franchise in Pro Kabaddi League today is in the green. Every franchise. So that shows that the business models are getting stronger. They may be getting restructured, but they're getting stronger and stronger. Okay, but the coronavirus hit us all, and of course it hit the sports industry in a big way. More and more brands, they spend a lot on fans, so the losses were down. Tourism is hugely linked to sport. I myself traveled 6-7 years ago to see Wimbledon, and there was a whole trip planned around Wimbledon. So tourism and largely related to youth sport. It's where all these, those daredevil sports also come in. Largely sponsored by Red Bull. They do what is called as the adventure sports, arena employees losing their money. Um, TV revenue, I cannot even tell you, this must be a killer to most of the channels. Okay. But remember, in all this, it's important for us to know the commitment that India would have to ensure that the IPL 2020 was held. It was not held in India, but it was held in a neutral venue. But we had a sponsor. The title sponsor IPL backed out, but we had a new sponsor, and IPL 2020 did take place, which was like a big boost for Indian sports. Okay, so why would I say that that digital is the way out? I would say that digital is only the way forward now. And I wanted to say this, that it was not because of Corona. I would say that we were already on the digital platforms. It's just that Corona has actually accelerated our growth, you know and today, because of digital, people say that, oh my god, now what happens to the in stadia experience? I would say no. You have the in stadia experience, but digital is offering to you now opportunities of growth which are unprecedented. Okay, so fan engagement is going to be so important. It has to completely experienced base. It has to be innovative. It could personalize very soon, and I think it's going to come now. It's already there, I would say. But I'm looking at World T20, where you may actually get customized experience, as you watch the match. And I would say that the industry is interconnected with digital. Now, every aspect of business, it's every aspect of the way the business looks at people, the way business looks at its its technology and its processes, we are going digital. So anybody who wants to be associated with the sports industry in terms of business, communication, and fans, this is the process that you have to move in via digital. I just want to tell you, look at the way of hours of media consumption, how it is jumping from 2014, 2015, 2016. With green is audio, the light blue is TV and applications, yellow is applications. But in all the three, so we are now very, very close. So we are catching up with applications. That shows that if you're going to have a sport event and that is not going to be exciting on technology, it's not going to have a fan-based technology exemption for fans, then that whole system will not work. So my three advices, or rather, anybody who is trying to enter sports as an industry, or as a communications person, as a PR person, one is you have to have a kick-ass presence on social media. Okay, because today brands are looking at social media as the only benchmark. I'm going to use the word only. I'm going to use it in full caps, as the perfect platform for brand perception. Okay, your entire success or your entire campaign is going to be on these platforms, so you are able to measure your campaigns. Okay, you are also doing customer service reputation through social media. You're doing your opinions through social media, and of course fan engagement, which is literally everything for brands today. Okay, so if you want to be a communicator or a business industry person in sports industry, you have to have a huge understanding of social media in terms of content, marketing, and analytics. Okay, it is very important for a brand to achieve its business objectives to be on social media. Okay, I would say that if I have to measure sports PR today, I would say, I'm going to say 70-30. 30% now is, we call it the MSM, which is mainstream media. Your PR activities will be 30% towards print and television. Okay, and 70% of all your activities in PR will be digital. Okay, and largely on in digital platforms, largely over one or two major social media platforms. Okay, so I would say it has completely revolutionized. I know there have been very senior PR professionals who have not been able to adjust to this transformation which has taken place, where you have PR professionals now live tweeting matches. You have image makers who are ensuring that even as the match is going on, what are the clips they can pull out and push it in terms of their positioning agenda for their clients. So there are new opportunities to pitch stories. There are fabulous new opportunities for branding. There are many brands who want to get associated with players, but they want to get associated with players only looking after the players' social media profiling. Okay, reputation management, which in old school terms we would say image management, now is completely digital. Okay, so I would say that sometimes I often wonder, people ask me, do our big players have PR professionals working for them? So my answer, this is a question many times was asked to me. So I would say yes and no. Because look, if you are a Virat Kohli, you have 100 million followers, okay, plus now. Why would you need a PR professional? A standard vanilla PR professional? I would say no, because he already, if you look at all his digital footprint, he is reaching out to more people than perhaps his PR person would reach out to. Okay, so he is his own image maker today. He is using digital for perhaps every aspect to reach out to his fans, to his business associates. Okay, and honestly, even in crisis, he is looking at digital to manage his crisis. So, so for PR professionals, I would say in sports, you better come full throttle on Twitter. Literally, I mean, if you are not on Twitter, I don't know how we can move forward. Followed by Instagram. Okay, definitely for all your business and branding activities, you need to be on LinkedIn. And of course, you and yourselves will have, what can you say? Clients who would be asking you to come on YouTube. Okay, so I would say a revolution took place. I also want to tell you the revolution has nothing to do with the pandemic. The revolution is already, it was simmering the last 2.5, 3 years, and the revolution, it's like almost came to an end during the pandemic. Okay. The step two is that if you are going to work for a sports brand and in their communication, the largest work you're going to get now is how enhancing ideas of communication you're going to come up to get the fans on board. Okay, everybody today, okay, wants the broadcaster and the distribution platforms to give you a fabulous engagement experience. Okay, and you know that the fans are exploring the matches from various devices. Okay, so you may be working but on your laptop, and the match could be on your laptop, but at the same time next to your laptop your mobile phone would be on, and you would be watching the match on Disney Hotstar app. Okay, so it happens to me all the time. I'm working, but on my tab is I'm watching my match, and on my phone somebody, there are various these sports forums which are simultaneous. So there has been a time that I myself, I've been looking at 3 different devices. Okay, and I want all the 3 devices to at some level give me engaging content. Okay, so just imagine, as a communication and PR professional, the what can you say, people always say to me that, oh my god, there's so much challenge. So I would say, yeah, there's challenge, but it's a blessing, because for marketing you want more platforms to reach out to the fans. So I would say there is a challenge, and trust me, the challenge is coming in terms of a blessing, so that you can reach out to more and more and more fans. And I'll tell you what's happening globally. That's what I said, no? From 2017-18, it's what we found, that the ticket sales for some of the most marquee events, and if you ask me, I am dying to see an NFL final. I don't know when that is going to happen, but it's amazing for me to see that People don't want to go to the NFL. They're not so excited to go actually and see an NFL final, but they would rather stream it and watch it with their friends. So while it's amazing that live attendance dropped 2017-18, TV ratings dropped, okay, but streaming, people started streaming, and that increased by 25%. Okay, so can you imagine that the challenge here is for the digital media is how do you now communicate, because more and more people are coming here to you, and that is going to give you a marketing opportunity. Okay, so when the TV ratings are down, okay, which is a signal now to all broadcasters that gone are those days when you're going to just show me a great match. Okay, are you going to make it to me a great experience? Am I going to be part of that experience? Okay, and are you going to help me to be part of that experience using some fabulous communication system, amplified by technology? Okay, so if you go now, I don't know how many of you have actually seen any sporting event now live. If you go to the stadium, I mean, I can tell you, I went to see IPL 2019. Okay, after almost I went to see IPL 2007 finals, the first IPL finals. Okay, and I'm telling you, it was like chalk, literally chalk and cheese. I mean, it is like the whole. It was like a party. Okay, so we had, there was, India still is very poor in all this, but there was virtual reality is going to come. There's AI, which is going to augment everything. It's going to be a very exciting viewing experience, live as well as streaming. So I always say this, that the sports industry has to realize that the fans, which are the, it's like they are the fuel of the, of your growth. The fans are asking more, the fans mange more. So, and are you ready for it? If the fans are mange more, and that's where the success is going to be. Okay, my number 3 step is that the sponsors are going to do what is called as very targeted advertising. Okay, so the success of the targeted advertising is going to be even more. Okay, and I always say this, and why should I talk? I'm not a millennial, but let me say this. My experience is in the sports industry only, I'm saying, okay, that the millennials are willing to share. Okay, here we talk about privacy and all those things, but the sport industry is extraordinary. The millennials are willing to share their data, okay, because they want those coupons, they want promotions, they want 1 month free of Hotstar, Disney Hotstar, okay, and also to get ads which they could be interested in. Okay, so now that the fans are willingly sharing their data, it makes life very easy for the sponsor, because using analytics, the sponsors can decide what is it that is exciting the fans. Okay, what is it that the ads the fans are wanting or watching? Okay, and create more kind of communication models for the fans. Okay, so here is, here is a very, very different business model of communication, where digital tools are providing information to the sponsors about the fans, about the kind of time they are spending, on what are the things they are watching, what are the things they find it cool, okay, what are the things they are not watching. Okay, and this information, trust me, in the sports sector is being shared by the fans. Imagine 71% of consumers would rather see ads which are focused on them. So for sponsors, digitization of communication is like big number one. Okay, and so where do we as students would be interested to go here is that we have to realize that the way we look at sports today has changed. Okay, the way we communicate and manage our sports stars is in terms of PR has changed. Okay, if I'm going to promote a big brand, okay, like Virat, or a big brand like Rohit, or any other star, I need to be I need to be literally like a social media nerd. Okay. The entire sports industry and the communication part of it is now a digital enterprise. Okay. I cannot go to work and say, listen, I do not know LinkedIn. We discussed it in details in our sports management lectures. If you don't know LinkedIn, you don't know Twitter, then maybe not the place for you to come. Okay. So what are these communication things is doing is bringing everybody closer. Okay, bringing the fans closer, the centrality of our business, which are fans. And then not only you bring them together, your next step is what kind of experiences you're going to create for them. What is the next big idea you're going to create for the fans, for all of them to log in, for that 7 o'clock match on Saturday? What is your next big idea? Okay. And even as you're all ready to enter this profession for communications, PR, for anything, please understand that the sports companies themselves are restructuring and reapproaching their business models. You have to completely adapt to this change. As of today, you have to adapt and be part of this change. Otherwise, and if you do not, adapt to becoming, it's okay. If you're not trained, get yourself trained. Okay. If you're already trained, you need to upgrade and you need to upskill. Okay. Because the next big thing after, communications, PR, and social media is how you will integrate the innovative and customized experience for your fans. So it's like the system is changing so fast at this stage. Sorry, the system is changing so fast at this stage that we don't even know what is the next big thing. But the only way that the system can help you to be there is that you adapt yourself to the system. And the only way forward, guys, is digitization. I hope I was able to give you a peek into what is stored in 2021 onwards. And this is a big year, guys. This is a very big year for sports in India. I can see a lot of questions coming, and let me see whether I'll be able to answer some of these questions. Oh yes, absolutely, Gaurav. I mean, there's no comparison in terms of football. There's no comparison because cricket, as you know, is only played by 10 to 12 countries. So there's no comparison. But I also want to say that the valuation of the Indian Premier League is very, very high. The last valuation we saw was by Phelps, and that company was touching around $6 billion US. So that's a lot. What is the best part about doing sports journalism? No, you first of all, you have to be passionate about sports, but I would say that don't look at specialization this early. The specialization will come. I think you should enter sports journalism with an open mind. You can come and say, okay, I would rather go and get myself experienced and then look at specialization. The specialization will come, but it won't come on day one. We don't have football. Why don't we have football matches in India like the? I would say, Gaurav, we have football. We have the ISL in India. But the point, perhaps, which has been debated about the ISL is that ISL is not bringing contemporary players. It's expensive. But I'm hoping the ISL ratings, the TV ratings have been exceptionally good by Indian standards. So I'm hopeful, but of course it's not. Women's football not very good. I agree with you, but I also want to say that in the communications and PR business models, how do you make these events in sports? I would say very, very attractive for the broadcaster. So which I think the Pro Kabaddi League was able to achieve. Did we ever think that a kabaddi would be a broadcast sport in India? And I think a lot of credit should go to Star Group for making kabaddi is now literally in our living rooms, bringing kabaddi in our living rooms. So maybe we need that little kick in football. Unless the contemporary players will come, or any one or two contemporary players will come, it will be difficult. But the ratings, I want to tell you, the ratings for football in the eastern part of India and the southern part of India have been really good than the western and the northern, if you do that. Oh, no. Marketing is different than PR. PR is where you actually create awareness so that more brands come in. Okay. Marketing is where you try to get the sponsors. See, PR is to create a positive image. Okay. PR and marketing are, though they are part of the same communication department, promotion department, marketing is where you actually go and get the money out of it. But by that time, the image of the player, the awareness of the player, the player is of a certain value system, character, discipline, approach, his principles towards his work. That all has been created by PR. And the marketing then, works on that image and awareness about the player. That's why. But they both come under promotion. Both these industries go parallel. Via digital. Oh, absolutely. It's already happening. People were saying, during the IPL, the buzz, there has been a lot of studies post the IPL 2020, because what else was happening around that time? Isn't it? There was nothing really happening in India. This thing, people were really, and we were in that very serious lockdown. So the IPL 2020 numbers, which are slowly trickling in, is already showing that, non-fans to get into it. Because that was the only international league which was happening, 2020 league. There was no global league happening besides IPL. It was already happened as of now. It's opening windows. I mean, there are many boards which actually have these unofficial windows for the IPL. So if I have to sum up, if I have to sum up for all those entering into sports as journalists, as PR professionals, and as communicators, which means you could be on broadcast, you could hold your own show. There are podcasts. I mean, you know what? My worry now, serious worry, is all those who want to enter television, which is fundamental broadcast, because the television fans are moving towards podcasts. When a match, yesterday night, when the match ended at 11 or 10 or 15, within seconds, the podcast started. And I myself was watching, I watched these two Australian podcasts and one English podcast. They are honestly, I don't want to say this, their fan engagement is so high. Like, I'll ask the question, they'll take my question. So my worry now is going to be, the big broadcasters in India. They have to jump the digital gun and reach out to the fans, because the fans like it. And of course, we cannot ignore the fans. They are our business model. Is there any sports? Oh, absolutely. First of all, let's go Northern America. It is the world's biggest sport market. So anything which happens in Northern America, we follow it later. Asia is picking up. China is a big center for sports, but I don't know, post-pandemic, I don't know how things are going to this thing. So the specialization would be definitely a postgraduate program in sports management. I ran a program in sports management, a postgraduate 1-year program in sports management with KC College for almost now 5 years. I've moved out as of now, but there are programs. There are master's programs. There people go abroad largely to Australia to do their like 18-month master. But I also want to tell you this at the risk of little promoting myself. I am going to launch very soon a very big program in sports management with a very big university.
And also, Smita, you're most welcome to start it again here. We are
yes, more than happy. I'll be.
Yes.
Yeah, we took a break because of the pandemic.
Yes.
And yeah, more than happy. So if for all your specializations, please get in touch with Manjula ma'am and me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions? No.
Thank you, ma'am.
Smita, I think we all as academicians here, we're listening to your presentation. Maybe if they can move the, camera, you would see people. And most of us felt it was one of the most organized, absolutely updated kind of
Yeah, thank you.
session. And I think students must have started thinking that, okay, now this is something which I should be a part of.
Yes.
So absolutely a very, very informative session. And I know you are doing wonders and fantastic with all the digital platforms, and the minister bashing is your favorite. I can see that. So we keep quiet. We do read your tweets, but we don't really comment.
That's
But yeah,
okay.
you are a person with a lot of guts. I must say, I respect you for your courage to just take up people's cases. So yes, that's one thing which you've been very responsibly doing. So thank you so much. And if there are any more chat, just see if there are any
No,
more
no.
messages in the chat.
No.
Otherwise, yes.
Oh,
what's
my
your
Twitter. Oh my
handle
God.
now?
My Twitter handle is, let me just to before I go, because it's better that, this
Yeah,
thing.
Neeraj just got up from his sleep after lunch. He has got questions, so now please answer him also.
Yeah, sure. What is the question? Let me ask. Let me see Neeraj's question.
Neeraj,
Yeah, okay. Do you think funds for PR and marketing from other countries? Neeraj, I'm sorry, I didn't quite get this. Other countries can turn the game into a propaganda game. I mean, see, you can see. Can I be honest with you, Neeraj? Because I am into PR as a business, and I can tell you one thing. There is this one ask. People ask me that how different is the PR of a sports person than, let's say, a celebrity. And can I say this? I'm sorry, nepotism doesn't work in sports. Really, it doesn't work in sports, because you are what your performance is. And the system is getting so our BCCR model under the National Cricket Academy, which is the literally like a machine which is churning out these. Every match we have a new match winner in cricket, and we should all be thankful to Rahul Dravid. I don't know whether people appreciate that work or not, because he's behind the scenes. Is the fact that you either perform or you perish. I mean, your father and mother are not going to help you here. That's the kind of game. PR can only enhance you and create you. The fundamental for the PR will be your performance. Okay, the groundwork of your of PR here would be your performance. But if your performance is not there, PR cannot be structured on top of it. Okay, so performance followed by PR, which will create you into a brand. See, that the people always say, oh my God, Virat Kohli, my God, 250 crores, 300 crores endorsement. But वो आदमी खेल रहा है. Every match, look at his performance. The day the performance will go down, the brand will be over. So you perform or you perish. That particular statement has never been so, honest and acceptable than in sports. But it may be or may not be in other industries. And I don't want to take names, but you cannot survive because of the goodwill of your parents or your surname. Maybe in Bollywood and politics it will happen, but definitely not in sports.
I like that comment.
Yeah.
Let us leave it there.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you, guys. And there is, of course, Jerry Maguire is a movie everybody has to see. But I also, the movie which I really, when I am down, if I can end it on this, if I am down, I see this extraordinary movie based on Nelson Mandela's life. And how he completely emerged. What can you say? His gave and took literally took the country off after he was released from his prison. And and how he took I think the Rugby World Cup, how they were really doing very, very bad. It's a Matt Damon film based on Nelson Mandela's life. I may not be able to get the name at this stage. If somebody can Google, but that's the movie. every time personally when I'm down and out, I see that movie, because that is what sports does to you.
Yes.
You know, it elevates you, it makes you a better human being, it teaches you discipline, it teaches you teamwork, and definitely, you know what, I'm telling you, in the kind of atmosphere we live, country first. Sports teaches you that.
So Smita, now I will have to just very
Yeah.
subtly tell you that we are, you know, up
Yeah.
for the next session.
Yeah. Thank
If
you so much,
if you're
guys.
around, we'll be very happy just
Yes,
to
yes,
give
I'll
you
be
a
around for a
little
while. Yeah.
summation of the whole thing. Very
Yes.
interesting papers, very interesting invited speakers, very interesting pre-conference. I think we are just a little sad
Invictus.
now
Yeah.
that, you know, it's coming to an end,
Yes.
though we
Yes.
had so much to do. And
Yes.
our students have supported us here physically and
Yes.
also
Yes.
online.
Yes.
We look forward to a very
Yes.
interesting
Yeah.
afternoon
So
after
the
your
name of the movie before we go is Invictus.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
Smita. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Bye.
So taking the session, the next session, which is Sue Sudbury's.
Hello.
Oh, hi. Hi, Sue. How
I'm
are
from
you?
England. I'm good, thank
Nice.
you.
It's nice to see you.
Yes, and I can't see you all, but I can see you, Manjula, which is lovely.
Can
Hello.
you bring the camera a little closer for my friend?
Hello. It's lovely because I can imagine being there, having
You're all
been there.
very dressed up for the event, Sue. You can see.
Oh, well,
You know how it is.
you're dressed up.
I must tell the audience a small story. I've said that yes, last year also, that students and also the other fellow participants here, I met Sue down near the Kolaba campus. I just saw a nice English lady walking with a very nice accent, and she just asked me, "Would you just tell me where this place is?" And I really liked the warmth with which she asked me that. And it wasn't American in the first place. So I just asked her, "Where are you from and what's your name and all?" And I just told her, "See, my office is on the 5th floor. Why don't you just come up and all?" And this was somewhere in 2015, I think. We started talking to each other. And let me tell you all, whether it is pandemic or no pandemic, Sue has always been there for us, for our conference. And with her immense, you know, experience and knowledge, she has brought such interesting observations to the conference. Thank you so much, Sue, for joining us again. There is a formal introduction of you, which we would like to just share, and then you can speak about your presentation, and then we'll play that. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Dr. Sue Sudbury. Welcome to the conference. Good afternoon, Dr. Sue Sudbury. Pleasure to have you on this conference. To all the uninitiated, Dr. Sue Sudbury is a principal academic in film and television production and direction in the Faculty of Media and Communication at Bournemouth University. She is also a documentary filmmaker and has directed over 20 films for British television. Her research interests include visual ethnography, participatory filmmaking, and gender ratios. You may start. Thank you so much for being there.
That's okay. Well, it's
Yes,
I'm
over
really
to you,
pleased-
Sue. You can start.
Yes, I'm really pleased to be here. Do play the recording because my paper's been recorded, because I'm playing some film clips within it, and I had a few technical issues, so I thought it was easier to record it, pre-record it. And then afterwards, please ask questions. very much for inviting me to do a paper at the KCC International Media Summit. It's great to be here. It would be better to be with you in person, but it's nice to be able to contribute to the conference this year as well. My paper is on village tales, and it's about a digital storytelling project in rural India that I did a few years ago. I'm a researcher working in the field of participatory film and visual ethnography. I produce practice-based outputs, but also write journal articles. I'm, particularly interested, as it says on the screen, in capturing seldom heard voices and unique perspectives. And I came across this project that was running in 2006, set up by Velugu, the Society for Rural Development, in Andhra Pradesh, as it was at that point. And it was funded by the World Bank, and Video Volunteers, which is an American charity, were training 12 village women to be video reporters. And they were selected from villages across the state of Andhra Pradesh because they'd been very involved in community newspapers. So they were particularly active in their villages and particularly good at getting women together to voice their concerns or issues that they wanted to talk about. And they chose to make their first film about child marriage because they'd all been married as children, and that practice was still continuing in their villages despite it being made illegal. I really like that positive images of women in saris filming in rural villages. It felt very empowering, but I didn't know whether it was. I wanted to find out more about their project, basically, and with my camera document them making their film. But I also asked 4 of them if they would use their cameras, the project cameras, to film their daily lives. So I gave them tapes, because everything was on tape at that point. And I said, please just film whatever you want. And each of them, Lata did very different things with her camera to Parvati, and Parvati did things differently to Indira and Vinoda. So it was all different. But the reason was that I was wanting to find out about the notion of the everyday. The everyday is something which is quite gendered, because obviously gendered experiences of the everyday are very different. But there are some things we have in common, like food preparation. There are various daily tasks that have to be done wherever you are in the world. So I was interested in that, but I also was interested in finding the third voice. And this is something that Barbara Meyerhoff first talked about at a conference in 1986. Sadly, she died not long after, actually, so she hasn't written extensively about it. It's been picked up by other academics, namely Jay Ruby. He talks about her work quite a lot, as do other academics. And she was an ethnographer, and she was talking about the idea of creating something which is not the voice of the participants or the ethnographer. It is a third voice. It is something you come together. And I very much like this quote of Jay Ruby. Films blended in such a manner as to make it impossible to discern which voice dominates the work. Films where outsider and insider visions coalesce. So I went there and met the group of women first, and the woman who was organising the project on the ground, and left the tapes with 4 of the women, and then came back later and picked up the tapes and also interviewed them. There were things I particularly wanted to know. And so I wanted to ask, I wanted them to do video diaries, and that was quite really interesting, because I don't know whether video diaries are now a method used in Indian television in factual programs, but they were very, very heavily used in the UK. Just this notion of when a camera, you chat to it like a friend, like, oh, I've got to get up today and I can't work because I'm feeling ill, or I'm tired because I drank too much last night, something like that sort of thing. And of course, they weren't familiar with that. Not all of them had televisions. In fact, there was quite a lot of difference in,
I mean, some of them had a well in their backyard. Indira did, and she had a television. Lata had a television, but other people didn't have televisions, other women. And so they didn't know what I meant. So what I did was I asked them to talk to their cameras, but I would prompt them through Jayashri, who's the translator. I would ask questions. And so it was sort of a hybrid of an interview, but it was very much, they knew when they were turning the cameras on. I mean, they would pause before they answered very often to think about what they were going to say. Then they'd reach forward, switch the camera on, and I had my camera so I could contextualize that, so you could see that happening. And then they would switch the camera off when they had finished and had nothing more they wanted to say. So they were always aware of being recorded in a way that you aren't. I've been interviewed and sometimes you're not so aware because they were in charge of the camera. But and the quality of their testimonies or their speech became more like soliloquies rather than the other half of a conversation when you're doing an interview. So what did this way of working find? I mean, you can see this film. This film is online. It's called Village Tales. If you just Google it, you'll find it. It's on my website, actually, Sequoia Films. But I just wanted to show you particular clips that speak to, well, that told us something. The women, every time they left, they had to ask permission of their husbands to leave the house.
బంటారం మండసం కింద
ఎప్పుడు వస్తాం మళ్ళీ
సాయంత్రం వస్తా 6 గంటలకు వస్తా
పోయిరా జల్దీ తొందరగా మళ్ళీ
I wouldn't have been able to capture that myself. That was filmed. I wanted to involve all the women in the filming. And so they worked in teams. So the 4 women that featured on camera had other women in the group, 2 women working with them, usually. In fact, a lot of Lata's footage was shot by her father, but that of Vinoda was shot by one of the other women in the group. And when I was there, the husbands disappeared. I never met the husbands. And you can see he's uncertain. He looks at the camera and isn't quite sure what he's going to say. But anyway, that was interesting. And then, but this is an example of Parvati, who has quite a joking relationship with her husband, but it shows that she felt empowered by the camera to ask him questions she didn't normally do about where he's been. But the men don't say where they've been.
ఎక్కడ పోయినా పొద్దున్న స్నానం చేసి వెళ్ళినా ఎక్కడికి వెళ్ళినా
నా పని నీకు ఇప్పేలా నాకున్నాయి కదా నీకేముండే కదా ఇంట్లో సమస్యలను చూసుకోవాల్సింది లేదు కాబట్టి నా టెన్షన్స్లో నేను వెళ్తున్నాను.
But when Parvati was filming her son coming home from school, he challenged the question when she asks, "Where have you been? Why are you so late?"
ఏమైంది నాన్న లేట్ అయిందా స్కూల్లో
చూపెట్టే పడ్డది ఏం కాదు చూపెట్టే.
So I think that shows you that gendered attitudes and privilege are established really early, as they are in a lot of countries. Indira, throughout her filming, she used the camera to question her husband about his attitude to her being part of the local government project, because I think she found he wasn't happy with her going out of the home and doing this other things, and she was determined to get him to eventually acknowledge that. So her footage was a lot of her putting him on the spot and questioning him.
ఏమండి మా గ్రూపులలో జరిగే మీటింగ్స్కి వెళ్తుంటాను కదా రిపోర్టర్గా మీటింగ్కి చిలుకూరు కని ఇంకా రాజేంద్ర నగర్ కని కలెక్టర్ ఆఫీస్ కని వెళ్తుంటాను కదా అప్పుడు మీకు ఏమనిపిస్తుంది ఎలా అనిపిస్తుంది మీకు
కొంచెం ఇంట్లో చిన్న చిన్న ప్రాబ్లమ్స్ అయినా కూడా ప్రాబ్లమ్స్ అంటే మామూలుగా వంటలు అవి చేసుకుని తిరగాలి లేడీస్ వెళ్ళడం వల్ల మీరు తిరగలేక కష్టం అవుతుంది కదా అంతకన్నా మించింది ఏముండదు
అయితే ఇప్పుడు నేను వెళ్తున్నందుకు కొద్దిగా పర్వాలేదు కదా నేనైతే వెళ్ళొచ్చు కదా ఇక సినిమా తీయమంటారా?
మీకు ప్రజల గురించి సేవ చేసేంత వరకు అది చూసుకుంటూ చేయాలి. ఇటు ఇల్లు అనేది అనుకుంటూ చేయాలి.
And the women often choose to film their children, and you know, showing how important education is, of course, in the family. And this includes a piece which was when Parvati talked about the death of one of her children.
My L K milk WHITEY.
నేను మర్చిపోలేని బాధ అంటూ ఉంటే, నాకు ఫస్ట్ బాబు పుట్టిండు, బాబు చనిపోయిండు. అదే నాకు చాలా బాధగా. ఇంకా నాకు ఎప్పుడు నా అంత కొడుకు ఉండేవాడు, వాడు చనిపోయిండు. 3 సంవత్సరాల నాకు చనిపోయిండు. అప్పుడు నాకు మర్చిపోలేని బాధ, నా జీవితంలో మరపులేని బాధ. నా కూతురు కన్నా పెద్దవాడు, అదే నాకు చాలా బాధ.
I mean, I think this way of working, it encapsulated some of the women's feelings and subjectivities at a particular moment, in a way that observational documentary filming, I don't think it could have done. Because, I mean, their filming just showed me things that I would not have been able to have captured, really. And also gave them much more choice, obviously, as to what they wanted to show me, or show us rather. In the West, people were really moved, and felt really close and understood the women in a way, because I think people felt very emotional. A lot of people watched the film and were very, very moved and cried, and in parts, and so felt connected with these women who are, their lives are obviously very far away. The knowledge created by this way of working, it was not only about the issues faced by these 4 individual women, but it was also about the local government project and how that was impacting on the power relationships in their relationships, and also in the community. I mean, I think it's necessary to be clear about the limitations of this way of working. It is only a snapshot. It is only a particular moment, how these women felt at a particular moment, or what they wanted to show me, us, at a particular time in their lives. And of course, it's an account that's been mediated by a Western academic filmmaker. So that is important. And you could criticize it and say that, you know, images of poverty are circulated globally. It is important to be aware of that. But then I think similarly, TV companies in Britain and the States at the moment have got very insular and are only interested in their own country, and that's a danger. Arun Shankar's written very interestingly about this whole area. It has had quite a lot of impact. It's been used, the film has been used in self-help women's groups in other parts of India, Tamil Nadu in particular. And this is what some of the women said about it.
வீடியோ வந்து பார்த்ததுல நான் என்ன தெரிஞ்சுக்கிட்டேன்னா, ஆந்திராவில் எந்த மாதிரிப்பட்ட சூழ்நிலையில பெண்கள் இருக்காங்க அதை நான் யோசனை பண்ணிட்டே இருந்தேன். நம்மளுடைய வாழ்க்கையை கூட ஒரு அழகா ஒரு வீடியோவை எடுத்துடலாமே, நம்ம என்ன பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கோம், என்ன செய்யுங்கிறது தெரியட்டு.
அந்த படம் ஒரு எக்ஸாம்பிளா இருக்கு, உண்மையிலே பாராட்டுக்குரியது.
இந்த மாதிரியான ஒரு வாய்ப்புங்கிறது கிடைச்சா நம்மவும் அப்பப்ப என்ன செஞ்சுக்கலாம்.
குறிப்பா இதை தமிழ்ல நாம பதிவு பண்ணி ஒட்டுமொத்தமா கன்னியாகுமரி மாவட்டம் மட்டுமல்ல இமயம் வரைக்கும் இது பரவணும், அதை தாண்டி கூட இது போகணும். இது ஒரு சாதனை அமைப்பாக அரசே நம்மை கவனத்துல எடுக்கக்கூடிய ஒரு அமைப்பாக மாறணும்ன்றதுதான் என்னுடைய ஆசையா நான் இங்க பதிவு பண்றேன். அது நம்மால முடியும்.
And this will happen. This interview was taken in January last year, so obviously lockdowns and things have stopped this happening or going ahead. But it's very exciting that these women in Tamil Nadu are also going to use cameras to talk about the issues in their lives and get those messages seen. Finally, This is a short excerpt of the film that, I mean, as an academic in Britain, we have to show impact. It's important that our research is impactful. And so I went back only a year ago, actually, not back physically, but spoke to the women who I've kept in touch with, who I met in 2006. And this is what they said about the filming that took place then.
ఇట్లనే లైఫ్ కొనసాగితే బాగుండేది అని అనిపించింది. అసలు అదొక థ్రిల్లింగ్, అది లైఫ్ లో మర్చిపోలేదు అనమాట. మా గురించి వెబ్సైట్ లో అట్లా పెడతాము, అక్కడ వేరే ప్రపంచ దేశాల్లో కూడా పెడతాము మీ యొక్క లైవ్లీహుడ్ అని అన్నప్పుడు, అయ్యో మేమేమో మూల గ్రామాల్లో ఉన్న వాళ్ళము అంటే మేము చాలా హ్యాపీగా ఫీల్ అయినా మేడం. ఎందుకంటే మేము చిన్నప్పుడు పెళ్లిళ్ళు చేసుకొని కొన్ని ఇంట్లో ఉంటాయి కదా మేడం, మా ఇండ్లలోకి వచ్చి మా పరిస్థితిని చూసి మా ఇండ్లలో ఉండడము, మా ఇండ్లలో కూడా వచ్చి మాకు షూట్ చేయడం, మా సంసారం ఎట్లుంది ఏంది అనేది షూట్ చేయడము, వాళ్ళు అంతా మాతోటి కలిసి ఉండడం అనేది చాలా మాకు గొప్పగా అనిపించింది మేడం. అంటే మేడం మా ఫ్యామిలీలలో కూడా చాలా సంతోషంగా అన్నిటికీ విజయం అంటే ముందుకు వెళ్ళండి, మీకు వాళ్ళంతా సపోర్ట్ ఉన్నారు కదా, మీరు ఏదైనా చెయ్యండి అని చెప్పి మాకు కూడా సపోర్ట్ ఇవ్వడం జరిగింది. క్లారిటీ ఇంకా ఏమంటారు ముందుకు స్టెప్ వేయడానికి కారణమే నాకు ఆ ఫిలిం. అసలు నేను ఈ వెలుగు అంటారు కదా దీన్ని, ఇప్పుడు నేను అదే వీడియో తీసింది, నేను బస్ లో ఉన్నా, ఇందులో పని చేస్తుంటేనే ఈ ఒక్క పని ఎందుకమ్మా నీకు, మార్కెటింగ్ లో ట్రైనింగ్ తీసుకో, మార్కెటింగ్ చేసుకో, అది కొంచెం జీవనోపాధి కలుగుతుంది అని చెప్పి మా ప్రాజెక్ట్ వాళ్ళు ప్రోత్సహించారు. ఇట్లా చాలా మంది అప్పుడప్పుడే అది పిక్చర్ తీసిన తర్వాతనే చాలా మంది 50 సంఘాలలో కూడా ఇన్స్పిరేషన్ పెట్టి వేరే ఊళ్ళో వాళ్ళు కూడా వేరే ఊళ్ళ దగ్గర కూడా తీసుకెళ్లి అక్కడ వేసామన్నమాట. మన వాళ్ళల్లో పూర్తి అవగాహన కొన్ని ఎస్పీ ఏరియాలలో చేసినా కూడా సంఘాల ద్వారా అడ్డుకుంటున్నాం.
The film is one of the outputs, and then I've written about the way of working and also the findings in much more detail in the 2 journal articles, locating a third voice and also visualizing the everyday in visual ethnography. I look forward to taking your questions. Thank you.
Hello.
I think in 2 to 3 minutes you should just sum up what the film is all about, because the audio quality of your recording was a little low, and some of them may not have understood that. So if you could just tell them about this place where you recorded the whole thing and what was the backdrop in which it was all done, because I know this movie, we have discussed it, and my mother tongue is also Telugu, so I would like to give a little more inputs into the kind of Telugu which goes with caste.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you could just take another 2 minutes and tell them about the film.
Yes, I mean, where do I start? Well, I mean, I'd rather have questions, but I can talk about it. I mean, it's I don't know where to start really. It is layered. It was quite complicated. This way of working did produce 25 hours of footage. I mean, I did my doctorate on it, and it took years to actually edit it all together, because there was the footage from their cameras, there was my footage, and it was finding a narrative through that. And trying to find the third voice. So it sort of had an academic underpinning, you know, theoretical framework. It did go out on Al Jazeera English as well. What a different cut. So, because I had funding, there was a fund at that time in Britain that allowed you, because that paid for me to go there to make the film, that was encouraging Britain to have films about other countries on the television. That fund has now gone. You know, our television channels are very insular. Ratings is everything, obviously, in this climate, and the streamers have taken off, but that's another story. yeah, I don't know what to say. I mean, thinking about it, I mean, I'm in touch with Latta particularly. I mean, you know, through the pandemic. Oh, gosh. Hello. Somebody's got a baby. A lot of things were said non-verbally.
One sec, Sue, one sec.
That's okay. But I mean, I'm more. Okay. Can you hear me now? I mean, this is, there are a lot of technical glitches. It's a shame you didn't hear the sound. I had to edit in the clips because it's very hard to play clips across the ether, I think. What made you come to a different country for the research? Well, funnily enough, good question, actually. I found out about the project. I got an email, that's right. I got an email from Video Volunteers. For some reason, I was on their email list and I clicked on what they were doing and I saw this project and it felt, I know a lot of really good projects happen like this in India and have been for a long while, but for me, it was the first time I'd seen anything like it. And I just thought, gosh, that's really interesting. And inspiring and great that, you know, in fact, actually at one point, Al Jazeera were very interested in whether the women could produce films for them going forward. And I mean, that's something to I mean, it wasn't possible, but, you know, I just thought it was really good about a way of opening up a more, you know, a wider voice. I think that, you know, I don't know what it's like in India, but in Britain, there was a time, and I think it's still there, where we were less worried about seeing steady pictures on the television. The technical standards that used to be absolutely, you know, desired and needed. I mean, when I worked as a researcher in the 80s, I used to have to go to Channel 4 TV with tapes where they would put them in to the machine and check that the footage was just right, you know. But now people's iPhone footage is good, but people's sort of shaky stuff is on our screens. I mean, having said that, a lot of the footage the women took was really excellent, very steady, and they knew how to shoot because they had been trained for 6 weeks. But yes, why did I mean, and then funnily enough, then of course I come to India to make the space film, and that was just because someone at a conference in England told me about, they were working with the space researchers in Mumbai. So there again, I'm coming to India, which has been great. It's kind of coincidental in a way, but it feels like my second home now because I've been coming to Mumbai until last February.
I know that.
For so
Some
long.
of them haven't seen your previous film, which was so fantastic last year, which you screened. Some of the
it may be on Hotstar. Is it on Hotstar still?
Yes.
It might be.
So
I don't know.
if we could type the name of the film, they should go and watch it.
I think it may. I mean, Nat Geo put it out.
Indian Space Dreams. Yeah, it's on Hotstar. Okay, great.
Well, it should be. Well, I mean, Nat Geo, it can't be screened now. I mean, they own the rights to India. So, yes.
Great.
Any other questions, or should we? I mean, I'm happy to go. I know you're running over.
Yeah. So I just wanted to add to your film, since my state is Andhra Pradesh, which is now Telangana and Seemandhra. I was just telling my colleagues here that there is casteism in the language also of Telugu. I wouldn't speak about other states, but in Telugu, when a Brahmin speaks the Telugu to a lower caste person speaks, the pronunciation is different. The words used are different. For example, when you say a Queen's English to a colloquial English. So the Queen's English, I'm sure it must be out there in your society as well.
It's the
same. More higher the people in the society, they have a more polished, refined, and a very stylish way of speaking that language, which is here given to it's given to the Brahmins in our state. And so these girls who were talking with their husband or with their families were all actually from the lower caste of the society. So these are those, who are doubly deprived, or they are remote twice from the reality. One is, being uneducated, two being women, third being women from that particular strata of society where their dreams are literally crushed. So when you showed me that image of a camera being held by them, I think it was like the greatest empowerment for them. It speaks, that particular image speaks in so many ways. Yeah, thank you so much for that film. Anybody has any other comment to make? Otherwise, we can conclude the session. We are slightly delayed for a panel discussion now. So,
ma'am?
Yeah.
Ma'am, I just have a question.
Yes.
If I'm not wrong, the woman in the movie, her name was Lata, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I want to know that how did you meet her? Like, how did you come across her?
I came across them all through the project that was running anyway, being organized by Velugu. So I met them in Chilkur, which is just outside Hyderabad, where they were being trained. And they came from villages in the north and the south, about some of them 4 hours by bus to the south. And Parvati and Indira were from the north of Hyderabad.
Yeah.
I met Lata in that group when I met all 12 of them.
Okay.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that question. And I think we will have to end the session here soon, but we definitely look forward to many more such workshops with you, which you could do with our film students who are interested in learning new ways of doing films. And what you presented today was another literacy drive of digital media, how you can present a film with a recorded speech. And of course, you were there and the film clippings were there. Thank you so much, Sue, for your time.
Okay.
And we look
Bye-bye.
forward to many more such sessions. Thank you so much.
Bye.
So finally, we are on to the grand finale, which is the panel discussion. And I request Riti to join, Sudha ma'am to join. I can see Anandita there. Hi, Anandita. How are you?
Hello, I'm good.
Okay. Who else is there? Hi, Sonali. How are you? Oh, we have finally got a moderator, Aditya. Hi, Aditya.
Hello.
How are you?
Good, ma'am.
Hi, Arpita. How are you? Kayo, wow. Hi, Kayo. How are you?
Hello, ma'am. Hello.
I think still we are missing on Namrata and Ash. Ash, your video, please. क्या मजेदार हेयर स्टाइल्स हैं कि सब DMM के बच्चे हैं, हाँ? Yes, let's start the session. Riti.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the panel discussion. Just a little brief about the whole panel discussion and the concept of the panel discussion as a part of the industry crossover initiative. The conference team usually organizes a panel discussion with eminent industry experts to understand the practical implications of the theme of the industry. So just like for everyone, a brief introduction about all the panelists and the panel moderator for this afternoon. Ms. Anindita Ghosh. Ms. Anindita Ghosh is a writer and cultural journalist based in Mumbai. She has previously worked as an editor for Mint Lounge and as features director for Vogue India. Ms. Ghosh is graduate of Columbia University with a specialization in arts and cultural journalism. Her forthcoming debut novel, The Illuminated, is going to be published in July 2021. We welcome you to the panel.
Thank you.
Next we have is Mr. Ash Gopalani. Mr. Ash is the brand manager of Z Entertainment Enterprises Limited, one of India's leading media companies. Currently, Mr. Gopalani is a visiting lecturer at KC College, Mumbai. With over 5 years of working experience in television and digital marketing, Mr. Ash Gopalani is also interested in data analytics, research and media content, digital television and others, and media discourse. We welcome you, Ash, in the panel discussion. Next we have is Mr. Kayose Irani. Mr. Kayose Irani is an actor and filmmaker renowned for Student of the Year, the legend of Michael Mishra and Ajib Dastans, the son of the Indian theatre and the movie star Mr. Baman Irani. Mr. Kayose Irani is also a KC college graduate. He began as an assistant director for Ek Mein Aur Ek Tu and debuted as an actor with Student of the Year 2012. In addition, he has appeared in Youngistan and The Legend of Michael Mishra. We welcome you, Kayose, in the panel. Next, we have in the panel discussion is Ms. Namrata Keswani. Ms. Namrata Keswani currently works as a creative partnerships lead at Google. With a proven track record in the marketing and advertising industry, she previously served as Vice President of Office Manager at Ogilvy, Mumbai. Ms. Keswani is a business development professional with insights into digital strategy, advertising, integrated marketing, and marketing strategy. We welcome you, Ms. Namrata. Next we have is Ms. Arpita Kalanuria. Ms. Arpita Kalanuria, a KC alumni, a speaker on circular economy, circular packaging, and Vedic roots and of sustainability. She has worked for films like Lavajkar and as a marketing head for the film Break Ke Baad. As a brand manager for Illuminati Films, she managed activities for well-known actors like Saif Ali Khan. Currently, she is the managing director at Amplipac, a company providing recycled and sustainable packaging solutions, contributing positively towards a waste-free environment. Wow. We welcome you to the panel. Next, we have in the panel discussion is Ms. Sonali Shah. Ms. Sonali Shah currently holds a position of Deputy Editor at Elle Magazine. With a decade of work experience in the media industry, Ms. Shah is a writer and editor based in Mumbai. She is also a KC College alumna. Having worked as a freelance writer, Ms. Sonali Shah has a significant work contribution to Elle Vogue. In Vogue, Vogue Casa, Vogue Wedding Book, Gracia, Hindustan Times, HT Brunch, Jet Wings, Time Out Explorer, Man's World, Hair, Mumbai Mirror, The Leela, and among others, and news websites. We welcome you all to the panel, and last but not least, the panel moderator, Mr. Aditya Mahandale, is a creative director who currently heads the creative function at Shibang, Mumbai. He is a pop culture aficionado, a storytelling geek, and a creative maverick. He is also Social Samosa 30 Under 30 nominee and has personally led award-winning campaigns for various brands in multiple categories. We welcome you all panelists and the panel moderator, and the platform is all yours. Over to you guys.
Thank you.
Yes, we can start with Aditya to begin the panel.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Hi, Sonali. Hi, Arpita. Hi, Ash. Hi, Anandita. Hi, Namrata. It's a pleasure to be speaking to all of you.
Hello.
Hi, Aditya.
All right. So the topic at hand today, which I think sort of stems from the larger theme for this conference, which is digital literacy, I think is interesting, but I think particularly interesting against the context of the times we're in. I think in the last couple of months and in the pandemic, even industries which were typically not associated with digital have had to adapt and evolve to digital ways of doing things and practices. I think a lot of us are from the entertainment and media industry, and we've always somehow found a way to flirt with digital. And I think we've that's only just accentuated in the last couple of months. So I'm very eager to understand from you, from each of you, how your workplace practices, how your ways of doing work have changed over the last couple of months, and what your projections for the future are. But before we kind of get into that, before we each wear our own professional hat, I thought we'll just go around the room and address some personal digital blocks that we may have had before the pandemic, that we, over the course of the last couple of months, because, you know, whether you like it or not, you've had to sort of immerse yourself into digital in the last couple of months. And I don't mean just for work, I mean in terms of just entertainment, in terms of whether it's a hobby, in terms of whatever other interests we may have. So I just thought we'd start with that. Why don't you guys tell me a little bit about something that you felt like you never could do on digital, but over the last couple of months have found yourself doing? Go for it, Arpita.
Okay, I have an example from yesterday. Okay, first I'll introduce myself. I supply and design, manufacture sustainable packaging, which replaces your traditional single-use packaging. So our manufacturing unit is in Pune. Now there was obviously because of the rise of cases in Maharashtra, it was a bad idea to travel to Pune to solve some small technical issue. And I previously wasn't comfortable with working online and, getting maybe, like a peon online, and actually wasn't even available. I think the last year, things have changed so much and for the better. I actually got a sample, like a product sample delivered from one place to another in a different city, sitting right in my office in Bombay, right? So that is something that I don't think I would have done before. I would have had to rush. I would have had to take the whole day off, travel to the other city, get the job done. It was done online, and I paid like 200 rupees for it. So, in terms of, being a smart and frugal entrepreneur, it really works out. Digitization really works out.
Nice. Okay. Okay. Anybody else?
Well, I can go, Aditya. My book that's out in July, it was sold a year ago, so during the pandemic. I've never met my editor in person.
Oh, wow.
And we finished the whole process of doing this. The last meeting was this morning via Zoom share screen. So we've edited an entire book on Zoom. I'm going to be meeting my editor for the first time next month. So I feel, we speak so much about the energy of in-person meetings, about ideation, but I found this to be a pretty seamless process. So I think, yeah, it's because handing over your manuscript to an editor, it's an extremely intimate process, like trusting someone with your work. Yeah. So that I've done this with someone that I've only met virtually and over phone calls because of the pandemic, signed all contracts digitally as well. That's been definitely something that I wouldn't have expected before.
Very fascinating.
Pandemic story. Yeah.
Okay. Sonali, Ash, Namrata, anyone?
Yeah, so, I work with Google and we take pride in the fact that we are digitized fairly.
Right.
But it's amazing how much you think that you rely on digital, but you actually have so much higher reliance on the chemistry, like Ananda said, the chemistry of the interface and the human meetings and all of that. And, when the pandemic hit us last year, it was almost impossible to think that if I had to do a launch event of a new product in April, which is 1 month into the pandemic, virtually, even for us, how is that going to pan out? How am I going to get 500 people? How am I going to I can get 500 people, but will I be able to engage with them for like 2 hours, right? And I think that the beauty of the human mind is that it eventually learns to adapt. And we pulled it off. It was a 500 people event virtually in the first 3 weeks of the pandemic. We launched a new product. We had everyone we wanted to have in the meeting. And yes, it felt like it would have been better if it was in person, but at no point did it seem like a compromise. So I think that's my biggest learning in this entire year that's been, that if you put your mind to it, it actually can just work itself out.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful to hear, and also reassuring that maybe if over the course of the next 90 minutes, people will be actually listening to us. Yes. Anyone else?
Yeah, sorry. Someone else is talking.
No, go ahead.
No, digital in our industry, actually, when we say digital, immediately we use it means OTT platforms for us. So digital here is a more broader spectrum. I'll tell you that never would I have thought that we'll shoot something on Zoom to a level right in the middle of the pandemic, when Delhi had just about opened up and Bombay was very bad. someone called and said, we have to shoot an ad film, but it's in Delhi, but you have to shoot it on Zoom. And I was so like shocked to say that how are we going to shoot this on Zoom, that I said, okay, I'll risk it. I'll take the flight, I'll quarantine, I'll go to Delhi and I'll shoot it. But no, we shot for 4 days on Zoom, a whole ad film which came out during the IPL at that point. And it was an amazing experience. Yes, I won't take away anything. I won't take away anything from the in-person way of doing it. Of course, that's always something more. But the point is that in terms of digital, what the pandemic has done is it will never actually be the same. We'll always be so much more reliant, is what I've realized, just on this and how we do it. Of course, digital for us, we go into Netflix and it's a much broader spectrum. So I have really, it's an eye opener for all of us and a kick in the pants for a lot of the old folks in our head, Baba.
Yeah,
The old thoughts in our head that we have to do it that way. And it was amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, that is fascinating. This reminds me of a personal anecdote. I do some voiceover work on the side, and I was at the studio the other day, and our director for that particular ad film couldn't make it to the studio. So he was coming through Zoom, and I was very, very skeptical about this because you're used to seeing someone across the other side of the glass tell you how to do things, right?
Yeah.
And here was the guy, he was right in my ear or giving instructions as if he was across the room. It was beautiful. It was just like, I mean, this guy could have been sitting in LA and it couldn't have mattered.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And I'm so glad we got to experience it because what would have happened 10 years later has happened now.
Absolutely.
And we've all just figured out how to work with it.
Yeah.
So,
yes, sir.
It's just a personal experience or just something that had happened last year at the peak of the pandemic. My father was turning 70. So we were like, let's do something. But, the disadvantage was we couldn't get all of us come together. And even my sisters and my parents were there, but my sisters, they couldn't come. So what we thought was we'll make it into an online event on Zoom at first, but then some people had issues with Zoom because it's a Chinese platform. So we had to adapt and do on Google Meet and all of that. So, and the thing is, people, my parents' age, my dad's siblings, my mother's siblings, and the extended family, they don't know how to operate this. So there was a lot of conversation, coordination over WhatsApp, over calls, but it took almost an hour to get everyone on the platform and just join and understand what is happening. But thankfully, it was a pretty good event, and my parents were happy. So I think that's the one thing that we didn't think we would have to do.
Yeah,
Not something we've done, but yeah, it was a fun time.
Yeah, virtual birthdays have become a way of life now. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Weddings too. I've attended two.
Oh, weddings too. Yes. Agreed. Yeah. All right. Okay. Sonali, I'm just going to come to you, but I just have a follow-up question for Ash and Mr. Irani. So I think the entertainment industry, and I think when we think about digital, Mr. Irani, as you put it, OTT is the first thing that comes to mind, right? And that has really seen a huge surge in the last couple of months. I think anecdotally, even for just the bunch of us on call, the number of things we may have seen during the pandemic in terms of entertainment is insane. Ash and Mr. Irani, I want both of your perspectives because both of you look at different parts of the business, one from a more management point of view and one from a more creation point of view. So how is both those aspects been affected? I know, Mr. Irani, you spoke a little bit already about.
Please don't call me Mr. Irani.
Okay, Kaios.
Kayo is fine. This is Mr. Irani.
Okay, so Kayo, you already touched upon this in terms of how crazy creation has been. But what's management been like in these times, Ash?
It's been extremely challenging. So there was before the pandemic, we used to initially push a lot to have a work-life balance to ensure we are out of office on time, and that's when work used to mostly be over. There used to be some spillover, but not as much as that it would just shake us entirely. But once the pandemic struck, I think that divide is entirely gone. Weekends are gone. We still end up, a lot of the people I've spoken to end up spending 13 to 15 hours in front of their laptops or phones just working. I know of a colleague whose eye was literally swollen because of the amount of time she was spending in front of the screen. And so marketing field, there's a lot of coordination involved, there are a lot of calls, there's a lot of coordination over in front of the screen that we have to do. But that has resulted in some terrible headaches. The senior management has not been they haven't been able to adapt, and there has been a push from the bottom up to have a work-life balance in terms of how we are dealing with our agencies, how we are dealing with every single aspect of our field in terms of if there is a creative approval, if there is feedback, it needs to be as minimal as possible. It needs to be as pointed so that there are fewer changes. There are people who stay where there is very poor internet connectivity, and that sort of delays it. But that's something that has to be worked around, that has to be adapted for. So that change has been really pushed from the bottom up to ensure that the seniors understand the kind of changes that have happened and uh, uh, the kind of effect it is having on employees in companies.
Okay. And but do you see any light at the end of the tunnel? Is there any positive outlook that's come out of this?
Uh, yeah, I mean that we working from home, I think that is a big. I don't know anyone who wants to go back to office anymore. I don't know a single person who wants to go back. So that is
I
definitely
want to
a
go back.
plus.
I want to go back.
Now
I
I
can't
know
sit at
one.
home.
I know one then
I
now.
want to go back.
Right.
I
So
Yeah.
coming to you, I mean, shooting is an intrinsic, you've got to be on set kind of activity.
Yeah.
And so how is that? What has
So
that been?
other than the shooting process and the COVID protocols, which are crazy, that leave aside, I'll tell you before the pandemic, the digital OTT platform was already booming. Okay, but in people's heads, especially in creators' heads, they thought that if you're not going theatrical, oh, so it's one step down to go OTT, which is like so not true. OTT has better budgets than theatrical. You don't have to get faces on it. And I shot a whole movie in the pandemic, in a COVID bubble, for Netflix. And the I'll tell you what, there are no, honestly, the issue of sitting at home, I agree with Ash. The issue is that because you're at home and you're working from home, people think, so he's free from 7 in the morning till midnight. So you can just continue. But that's all fine. That went through in the initial process. Shooting, honestly, I don't think right now has reached a point where you can be that digital about it. But like advertising, what we do is now we do shoot on set, we keep a minimal crew, and we keep agency, client all on Zoom with a camera feed. And then we have a longer process of shoot because we talk to them. Oh, this is how you feel. Okay, we come back. In all of those small internet connectivity issues and all that happen. Overall, I'll tell you, there is something more efficient about it. There's something more streamlined about it. When we shot, of course, we created a COVID bubble and shot, but we prepped the entire film on Zoom. The entire film. We even did action tests, like action stunt sequence tests on Zoom. We scripted the film on Zoom and we edited the film on Zoom.
Wow.
Every single thing. I mean, Zoom or whatever, Google.
Right.
Whatever it was. Zoom is what it's now called. Zoom has become like Xerox. So everything was on Zoom. Yes, you definitely do miss the being right there sometimes, but you have a lot of advantages as well on it because we get a lot more work done.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I've not found it to be, I found it to be challenging in terms of the pandemic and the precautions.
Yeah.
But it's amazing. If this pandemic had hit in 2001, I don't know what we would have done.
Right. No, fair. All right. Sonali and Anandita, just to bring you in now into the discussion, journalism has also always been seen as a kind of boots on the ground kind of activity. You need to be living and breathing the story. So how is writing for, things like travel and culture and lifestyle, which are intrinsically outdoor experiences and activities, how has that been like when being cooped up at home, and how's that experience been all about? Sonali, maybe we can start with you.
Yeah, so for me personally, I don't do journalism anymore. I do softer features, so it's been easier. I haven't been reporting. And well, the travel section has more or less been closed across, I mean, from whatever I know, because, well, no one's been able to travel. So I've not worked on a single, like my beat is travel, but in the entire last year, I haven't written a single travel story. Because where do I ask readers to go and what will they do and what will they see, you know, that way. So other than that, my life more or less has been not too changed, because I realized I was quite dependent on digital in a good way though, because I got a lot of work done. I used to write for magazines which are not in my own city. So like Anandita said, she's worked with an editor whom she's not met. So Anandita probably won't know, but I've written stories for Vogue when she was the editor and we've not met either.
Okay.
So, yeah. So it's like that. So I've written for editors who are based out of other cities, and it works. The only thing, like Kayo said, shoots is a little bit of a problem, where we had our art director directing the photographer who's in another studio in another city over Zoom. Other than that, it's been a bit challenging designing pages, simply if you have to do something which is artsy or design, and when you're talking to someone over the phone and saying this line needs to be shortened a little bit, this text box needs to be enlarged a little bit, they don't know whether you're asking them to do it in an in an upward direction, downward direction. So those minor things, but everything's worked out. I feel, I mean, I do go to office. I'm in office right now, and some of us come in maybe like once a week when we are in production, where everything needs, the pages for magazine need to be proofed, etc. But other than that, we've not had the need to heavily go. On the downside, of course, your time to do things increases. Like if I can close a page in one day, it probably takes me a day and a half, or even over that, to close a page. But other than that, it's fine. And then I'm not missing the Bombay traffic so much, so I'm not complaining about that.
All right. Okay. Anandita?
So, as I think most of us would be aware, the print industry was, I mean, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't affected. We all know of colleagues and friends, and I'm sure a lot of alumni that were laid off. Because in the first, say, 4 to 5 months of the pandemic, newspapers actually weren't being delivered, right? So we were having an okay time. I mean, both Sonali and me are in features, right?
No.
Because we're not actually going out and interviewing people on the street. So you can interview artists and writers over Zoom. So while our personal lives weren't really that altered, the industry was really shaken. People were laid off, and operations had to dynamically adapt. The interesting thing is, so I quit Mint Lounge as editor in October for various reasons, including my book coming out. But the interesting thing is, just a month before COVID happened, we had embarked on a project to launch mintlounge.in, which is now launched. I launched it before I left. And in the research, in the data that we studied pre-launch, obviously sports and travel were two sections that we completely excised.
Right.
Because carrying travel content actually felt cruel.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
like now people want to know where they can go. But right then, when people were like, having mental health issues and cooped up at home, carrying stories about real sports events or travel, we did research, was actually considered like to be, it could negatively impact mental health. So we completely cut that down. But a lot of other areas had to adapt with how the pandemic affected content needs. So food stories shifted from restaurant stories to home chef stories, right? Fashion stories shifted from consumption to how can you restyle your jeans in 10 ways, or how to wear earrings for Zoom calls. So I think a lot of journalism content changed, and the industry is now kind of newspapers are being delivered, I think reached a place where print houses have realized that we can cut away a lot of fat. We don't need photographers. This is a sad bit, though. A lot of media houses have fired photographers because they somehow functioned. Magazines and newspapers came out with any live photography for the first 4, 5, whatever months. So people were just relying on, self images, whatever. So photographers lost their jobs. But I think media houses did a lot of cost cutting, and some of that has worked for them. They've realized we don't need certain things. We don't need editors to fly down. I had to fly down twice a month to meet my boss in Delhi, and all of that was happening on Zoom. So I think now that we're looking back, a lot of the excess fat has gone, and the industry is kind of realigning to a new way of working. And I think it's mostly been for the better. I think with fewer magazines or with fewer people, you're pushed to actually produce better content with tighter resources. And now we have to wait and watch over the next 3 to 6 months. Yeah, but I don't think it's all bad.
Okay, fair. I think the aspect that both you and Sonali touched upon in terms of the content changing to sort of adapt with the times is interesting. One thing I wanted to sort of speak about is you mentioned that travel, and speaking about travel, would in fact be cruel, because in a time where you can't do it, it's terrible. But on social, there are a lot of ongoing conversations about this, right? You open Instagram, and people are almost, I'm talking even a couple of months ago, even when, there were massive travel restrictions and things like that, people were talking about like wish listing and talking about things that they would do post the pandemic. So how do you sort of navigate those kind of calls? Because of course, while you take an editorial call, ethically not to do that for, mental health reasons or whatever, you also at one end see that there's an audience demand for that, because people voyeuristically want to live that out, even if they can't experience it for themselves. They want to get a virtual experience of that and things like that. So I just wanted to just quickly get both your 2 cents on it.
So Aditya, I'll say this quickly before Sonali takes on. We have to realize that we're talking about feature journalism, magazine journalism. It's a business.
Right.
It's not just about what the reader wants. It's also advertiser needs. So
Sure.
If during COVID, your entire travel advertising there was no travel advertising. The entire travel industry was kind of in freeze, say, for the first 8 months. If there's no travel advertising, we are not expected to produce travel content. So it is a bit of a banya system, if you look at it that way, right? You will not create a content atmosphere for an area in which there's no advertising. So
Fair.
It might sound a bit too clinical, but that's also a reason. And then things did start opening up in October, November, which is when people were traveling. That's when the wish list travel also started. But
Yeah.
Initially, it was also an advertising driven call. Things are very commercial in the feature journalism space. So,
Understood. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. Sonali, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I was going to say the same thing, that
Okay.
at Elle magazine also, we've not opened our travel section yet, because internationally there is travel happening, but I think Maldives is the only place which is welcoming everyone, and it's splashed all over Instagram. But other than that, there's a little bit of domestic travel happening, which is sparse and in small pockets, not enough for us to decide that, okay, this is an upcoming destination or this is where you should go. So we've not done travel at all. And from what I see personally on social media, I see a lot of throwback pictures of, people just missing places they were in. So we've only recently, only on our digital handles have we, I think just this week, we've just put out our first food story, which talks about restaurants. Like, other than that, we weren't even doing stories on restaurants. All our F&B was around what you can do at home or chef interviews, we weren't supporting go out and do things, because the government directive was also to stay at home. So it makes us sound a bit, how do you say, not trustworthy, but not in a very good light if we are promoting something which is a bit of a scare these days,
No, understandably, yes.
Yeah, that one.
All right. Arpita, just to quickly bring you in, you work in the space of sustainability, and when it comes to sort of rallying for any kind of cause, the perceived notion, maybe even pre-pandemic, was that it needs to be done, on ground through events, through forums, in your case, maybe like environmental conferences, things like that. How is that experience for you been through the course of the last year, done purely digitally? Because I know you use your social handles powerfully to propagate your thoughts and ideas, and you've done interesting set of challenges and things like that also early lockdown period. So maybe if you can just take a couple of minutes to talk us through that.
Yeah, so in my case, it's not social activism. It's more like social action.
Sure.
And what we're doing, what I'm doing is basically building an entire framework which depends on technology, depends on digitization. And this framework allows technology to reach the end user, the consumer, and make it easy for that person to return a container, right? So if I have to look at it, in the India market, we were already pre-pandemic. We were already in a stage where digitization was, being accepted quite widely, right? We do have, you'll have everybody in the villages with a mobile phone, of course, and internet connectivity is improving by the day. It's affordable, and I think the most important part is that media is now available in your regional languages, and it's quite a huge market. So that actually media acts as a sort of bridge between technology and adaptability or adoptability of that technology. So in my case, it was a realization that we thought that India would be the last market to adopt sustainability. But when we spoke to brands and we understood that technology is there, media facilitates that, right? So social media plays a really important role in not only digitizing the nation, but also adopting. So my technology is based on AI, for instance. So could you imagine AI being used by somebody in the village, say 5 years ago? It's not possible, but today it's possible. So pandemic or no pandemic, I think the pandemic actually gave us more time to prepare and prepare better, right? Yeah.
Okay, fascinating. And in terms of like you said, the challenge here is also getting people to adopt. And how have you tried to do that purely using digital channels? And maybe some of that is, like you said, sustained efforts from what you were doing pre-pandemic also. But is there something that you have double tapped on during the pandemic period?
I think the clients that we're working with, the brands that we're working with, they're the ones who are facilitating the media and facilitating the use of media, for gaining consumer access, or even, getting consumers to get used to the technology. So I think that would be more on the brand side. We don't do that directly. We talk to our consumers. It was so easy because everybody was online in this pandemic, and whoever you wanted to reach out to, whether it's a big brand or a small brand, everybody's there, everybody's available. So yeah, in terms of if you say reaching out to my particular market, because we do B2B, that was pretty simple. And B2C again becomes really easy when you look at vernacular languages or regional languages and content in those languages to reach out to the masses. I think, that is what facilitates the use of technology.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Namrata, to quickly bring you in, I think when we think about Google, it's almost like we equate digital to Google, right? It doesn't get bigger than that. So while for a lot of us, the conversation that we're talking about in terms of just adoption of practices and digital workflow and things like that have been maybe new for Google, and the way you guys have been probably doing things internally, this may have been, just the way things have been. So I'm just interested to know that for a core digital company like Google, how have they, what have your internal workplace practices been like in this period? And as do you think they have also amplified in some way?
Okay, so very interesting question. I'm going to break it down into two parts. When you talk about digitization, one is all the equipment and all the processes and the logistics, which is I may use a Google Meet and I may use, a YouTube Live, so on and so forth. These are just platforms to make the communication easier. And that's where the adoption barrier generally occurs. So for a company like ours, where employees are already using those products, that barrier is an easier climb to climb because you're already using those products. The second part, which I think even we had to work with, is which I was referring to earlier, is the human chemistry in meetings, right? Yes, it is seamless when you do it on a platform. It is seamless when you use a YouTube Live, but nothing replaces the fact that sometimes you're in an office and you're sitting in a conference room together and building off each other. So that, I think, for a company for all of us from the company, was a sort of climb to make and adjust to. We were all fairly seamless in terms of using the technology and all of that. What ended up happening a lot is our families and our dependents got digitized with us as well, because they were seeing us get so digitized so seamlessly and so quickly, that it was our parents and it was our siblings and it was our partners, all of them getting onto the same platform for recreational use as well, with equal ease. So I think, so yes, the straight answer to your question, it was easier in terms of comfort with the platform. We shared the same struggle as the rest of the world in terms of replacing the human chemistry factor, making that virtual and adapting to that. And our immediate bubbles sort of rode the journey with us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. And just quick follow-up question on that, given that Google, at least, from what we hear externally, really prides itself in its culture and all those aspects that you spoke about, right? In terms of connection, I think is a big part of the game. So for a lot of, I'm assuming during the pandemic period, there has been hiring, there have been new people who've entered the ecosystem. How have those engagements been for someone you've never really been in the same room as, or those kinds of things? Because I know Google really goes over and above board in terms of offline activities and making sure those actual in-person engagements are also
Absolutely. And this has happened in close quarters. I've had people in my team who've joined after the office shut down, like 10 days after the office shut down, which still makes them a year old in the company today, but they've never seen the office.
Right.
And which still makes them a year old in the team today, but they've never met the team, right? And a part of me applauds the fact that, we still managed to pull it off. The person contributes to the meetings as much as anyone else today. And obviously there is a sense of comfort and command on the skill and the entire knowledge bank. But a part of me also, and I won't lie, a part of me does feel bad about the fact that you're whisked away to these amazing trainings where you meet people of different cultures, different walks, different departments. All of that had switched to virtual, which means that you didn't really get that coffee and that drink after the session, which means that you didn't explore like an unknown city later, etc., etc. So part of me feels bad for the nooglers, as we call them, who've onboarded themselves during this journey. But I guess that's just something we need to wait and watch. And when the world opens up, they'll have their taste of it.
Yeah. So, okay, let's do one thing. Let's sort of extend this conversation, bring everyone in, because I see this has been a bit of a common thread, right from the start of our discussion. So I remember Kayo mentioning that, collaboration has definitely become easier. So you have someone who's a scriptwriter sitting in a city, who's talking to a music director somewhere else, who's talking to an actor somewhere else, the sound is getting mixed in some other state. So it's beautiful from the point of view of collaboration. But and this is to all of you: is collaboration coming at the cost of connection? Do we feel that somewhere the human aspect of the things that happen behind the scenes are we losing out on that a little bit? The humanity of our business.
So I'll say something.
Sure,
honestly,
absolutely.
I've not had the time to think about this because, like I mentioned, things that we do in a day takes a day and a half or two. So I just feel that we've not had a time to step back and think, hey, it used to be nice if we were all in office and catching a cup of coffee at 5 and just chilling for a while, because now there's just so much to do. And I feel I've even taken on personal projects because suddenly there's this illusion that you have more time since you don't commute and go to office. which means you're always doing more things. And I've just never had this opportunity to think that, okay, maybe I'm losing out on real connections or, meeting people in the traditional way that I used to, because I'm doing so much more now. And I know this is not true for everyone. And a lot of people who are extroverts also feel the need to physically meet people and spend time with them or visit another city, like how Namrata mentioned. But for me personally, there's just no stepping back. I think it'll happen in a few months, maybe, once I tire down a little bit. But right now, I feel it's going great.
You're enjoying the me time. Great, sure.
I love that point of view, and I'd love to build on it. So absolutely, right? I think no matter how digitized we get, nothing replaces, to my mind and in my personal opinion, the human connection, right?
Oh.
But what the pandemic forced all of us to do is be mindful of the human connection being missing, right? So think about it. When you went back, when you go back in time and think about what you were like in May, what you were like in June last year, this is what I was doing. I was reaching out to friends. I was fixing a time to have a conversation with them on video, something that I may have done over a casual coffee some other time, make a plan, meet on the weekend, etc., etc. The family weekend catch up was all like, it was so popular. There was a WhatsApp group calling and all of that, right? You discussed more things with friends. You reached out to one-on-one conversations. You actively tried to replace the missing connection in some ways. So my perspective, before the pandemic, when I used to call my parents every single morning, it was a normal phone call.
Right.
But during the pandemic, it seamlessly switched to a video call, and it hasn't gone back ever since.
Yeah.
Now I don't know. Now when I speak to my mom on voice, it seems like a compromise. So I think we need to keep our eyes open for the things that we've actively tried to earn back and try to slowly replace, I wouldn't say replace, but slowly earn back the part of the human connection that went away by us being in silos and in different geographies. So it's not all bad.
No, I think that's a very fascinating perspective. Now that I think about it, there have been so many friends that I have not been in touch with, but maybe that isolation has propelled me to try to make that effort. So absolutely, that's a very, very good point. Yeah.
I'd like to jump in here. I think we have to, while it's really, we are romanticizing, we all tend to be romanticizing that human connection, meeting people. Yes, it is something we've lost, but we also have to acknowledge that over, say, the last 5 years, a lot of our work actually did move to the digital space. It's very different for somebody like Kayo, whose entire shooting experience has changed.
Sure.
But see, for journalists, my team, the team of 16 people, was spread between Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore. We anyway had our team meeting with 3 people sitting in 3 groups in 3 different Zoom offices, right? Like, we had a video conference with people on Zoom. Instead of 3 locations, now it was 16 locations. That was the change.
Yeah.
Sure.
We do all our editing on a software. So even when I did go to an office every day, yes, there was some talking, but most of the day we did spend working in front of our computers by ourselves. So I think we need to acknowledge that the way the industry and the way our lifestyle has changed in the last 5 or 10 years, the pandemic was, this would have been very different if this was, say, 20 years ago, complete isolation. So yeah, we don't need to over romanticize what we've lost. We have also gained a lot.
Okay.
And one thing that I
Absolutely.
want to add here to kind of, just throw off your thread completely, Aditya, is one big thing that has changed hugely, which I should have mentioned before, is that the hierarchy of print over digital in journalism has gone. Just like Kayo said, OTT was below theatrical release, that's gone now. As print journalists, we all said, we want our story in print, we'd wait for it for 2 weeks, it's okay if it's late. Digital was considered, where the bad stories went or where the
Extra stories went.
That's no longer the case. Now, if I'm writing a fortnightly column, it's on Bombay Begums, I want it to be out on digital the day Bombay Begums has released. I don't care if it's later. So that's been a huge change in print. And I just wanted to, the hierarchy has.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in there, Anandita, and I'm going to build on that because I think that's a brilliant point. I come from a creative agency background, right? I spent so many years in advertising. But every time you told someone that there was a brief for a TVC, there was stars in their eyes about this is the next big thing that I could do. And then digital was always something that came at the fag end of the PowerPoint presentation, which was just an attachment as a latch on to the big idea, the core idea. So it was the central idea being the TV was cracked first, and everything was just multiplied in its poor form onto digital to replicate and deliver. But now, and this has been inching for the last 5-6 years, but the pandemic maybe accelerated a few years in a capsule of a time. But now a creative person is excited about winning an award on a YouTube film as well, right? And not just excited, and by in no means is the person seeing it as a compromise. I think that has been a wonderful shift because consumption has changed, right? The way you and I are consuming content, TV, media, etc., all of that has changed. So I think that's been a fabulous change as well.
Oh, absolutely. So Namrata, as someone it works for a digital agency, I got to attest to that because I mean, for us, it's really been crazy, and I think you're right. Today, the Gen Z and millennials who we work with, for them, even if it's a YouTube pre-roll or it goes on TV, they don't have those lines. They don't have those. It's as if it's a IPL spot that's just as big. So I think that's absolutely very fascinating. Yes. Kayo, I know you were inching to say something. Go for it.
No, see, it's a little different for us. It's a little different over here because even though the digital has given us so much and we've learned so much, it has its limitations.
Sure.
Okay. For example, just before the pandemic, I worked on for 2 years on a film. It was a huge film called Takt, with a lot of battle sequences and all of that. Now today, even though we are shooting again, doesn't mean we can shoot that. We can't because we won't be allowed to. So like someone told us, look, that film they want to shoot 5 more years. You have to wait 5 more years until COVID is eradicated because you cannot have 2,000 extras together in a battle sequence and you cannot do this. So right now, as of let's say August onwards, the mandate for us was be smart about what you write and be smart about what you want to make, because you may not be able to make it in the current ecosystem. So if you turn around and say, I want to make this period piece where I want that, forget about it. Start thinking less locations, start thinking chroma, start thinking things you can work on Zoom. It's not going to happen. Start thinking small crew. So I'm like, the best thing for me, of course, is the digitalization that, even our big projects are huge, like big films are considered for OTT, which I'm very happy about. That change is great, but there are limitations to what we can and can't do. In terms of the human contact, I'll tell you, because you asked this question earlier. If you ask me this question in July, I'll say that, there is a little bit of a problem. But even from July, we are not what we were in July now.
Sure.
We've moved further. We are in human contact. And come Diwali, come December, it will be a different situation. So even though when people come fresh into any of these industries, they will come at it with not like how we experience it, how it was standstill, only Zoom. There will be a change, a good change, but it will have some sort of normalcy to it. So we are adapting almost every day to how it can happen, but it will come about. And the human connection today, if you ask me, it's absolutely fine.
Right. Fair enough. Interesting. All right. Ash, Arpita, did you want to add anything at all?
Sorry, I thought Ash was saying something, but I think for me, the journey, like, they were talking about travel segments being completely off the charts, and, you can't talk about it. I think for a lot of people, and especially myself, the journey has been inward, because you're sitting at home, you have, your computer, you have your phone, and you have to do something, you have to keep creating. I think I read a lot of books. I watched a lot of OTT, of course. So there you go, you don't really need a theatrical release for sure. I'm not connected, directly with the film industry anymore. So it's nice to hear Kayo talk about filming an entire movie on Zoom. I don't know how that happens. I would love to find out. I don't know how you can put that together.
We did an ad film on Zoom.
Yeah, okay, ad film. That's fair enough, Yeah, so I think productivity is at an all-time high because everybody's working all the time. You have access, all the time to people. So I would say that it's been great. The journey has been great. It's all right. The last year, I know we're the privileged ones who've been okay throughout this thing, of course. Yeah.
Fair enough. I'll stop romanticizing the human connection. No, Ash, go for it.
I think it's just about adaptability. Now we're more interacting online via social media or video calls. It's definitely become more than it was. And there are people, there is a generation after us for whom this will be the normal, and meeting in person would be the awkward, oh, why are we meet? Like, there are people who already wonder why are people calling, just text. So I think it's just about adaptability. We are adapting to a changing environment, and we're all moving online. And I think the next generation will be a lot more comfortable, who are a lot more comfortable than I think we are.
Okay, fair. So just kind of taking from there, as since you spoke about a specific tool, and so we're talking about video conferencing. Namrata, I just want to quickly bring you in on this point, because I think when you were talking about your last answer, you broke it down into ecosystem, and you said first is, of course, it's the tools that are available, and they're available to all of us.
Yes.
Now, with the tools, and this is sort of a 2-4 question. One is obviously the adoption of it has been tricky in terms of, we went from, it was like overnight, right? It was like a switch overnight, right? From being in office to suddenly doing things on Zoom or doing things on Google Meet. So the first couple of months were strange in terms of how we work on those platforms, but also a little bit dehumanized from the point of view of, a lot of people, choose to keep their cameras off, or choose to stay on mute for a large course of the conversation or the meeting, and things like that. So do you feel like, somewhere the tools are could also be hampering the conversation, or you think that's again a human call of how you choose to use that piece of technology?
I think the tools exist in this circumstance. You're using I'm using the example that you took. You're using video conferencing as a tool because it is impossible for you to right now, in this minute, sit next to each other and have this conversation, right? The downside of that tool is the fact that you're not physically next to each other, and therefore it's not a chemistry conversation. One of the advantages of the tool is that it's slightly more flexible. What that means is that, yes, I have the flexibility to sit in my bedroom and switch my camera off if the circumstance in my house wishes for that, and have that conversation. I think that's a give or take that you got to deal with when you're using a platform like this. There are a number of times, and I'm sure we've all done it, where we've taken a meeting while we're lounging on the couch and probably in our PJs, and our camera remains off. Those are the days that we are choosing to disengage at some level. And then there are enough days where, today I'm wearing makeup and I'm having this conversation. I'm highly engaged, I'm highly leaned in. It would have been the same energy if I was sitting in person as well. So I think to me, the tool is not hampering. The circumstance we are in allows us the flexibility to engage and disengage, lean in and lean back. And that's what reflects through the tool, right?
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And is there anybody else who wanted to sort of chime in before I sort of go for my next question? Oh, okay, all right. So another aspect of it, and Amrita, is like you said, the chemistry aspect, right? So do you think these tools also, in a way, since they're very focused, since they're directed towards being hyperproductive, also change the course of the conversation? For example, let's say, you and I were just meeting for the first time. Typically in a physical environment, there would have been some sort of small talk. There would have been, hi there, what's your background, what's your context, all of that kind of thing. And then you sort of veer towards the topic at hand. There would have been an exchange of pleasantries, coffee goes around, the works, right?
Yeah.
All those things that we call small talk are important just to sort of set the scene.
Absolutely.
Now,
Yes.
it's sort of, I feel like, and maybe this is my workplace, but it's become hyper focused to what the agenda is, right? Okay, we have scheduled time. We have scheduled time of 30 minutes for this. This is what we're just going to directly get into it. And there are those kinds of things. So how do you think we should find a way to navigate through that? Or do you also think, again, that's an evolution thing? The more people stay with the piece of technology, and the more they'll find their way to break through.
I think not having the softer conversations and the softer chats while in a meeting, etc., it's a good thing and a bad thing in my opinion. It's a bad thing because you genuinely like the people you have at work, and it's a work group, and you'd love to have a bit of a chit chat before you actually get in, and that personalization sort of goes missing. The upside is that there's a lot of respect for the time on the calendar, because you have a meeting invite, it's tied down, which means that your productivity, your ability to draw boundaries around your work day, your ability to do things around the house is all increasing, because your productivity is increasing, because there's a respect for your time. And my personal way of navigating this is that there are a few folks at work who I'm friends with, and we have a coffee catch-up slotted every 1 week, every 2 weeks. Nice. Bring a cup of coffee, switch on the video cam, and chat. And it's not a work chat. So I think it's, when it comes to a Monday morning review meeting, I think having focused and getting to the point is a great idea. And having a Friday second half meeting with a cup of coffee with a friend that I really like at work is also a great idea. So the larger theme that emerges is that I think the tech exists. I think the tech comes with its certain set of boundaries. It's up to you on how to flex those boundaries and use the tech to your advantage.
Fair. Yeah. As just to have you quickly come in on this, since you spoke in the start about it's been a stressful time at the workplace. So do you how this point that Namrata is making is a fairly valid one, in terms of, I think, workplaces, when cultures of workplaces have to define this sort of environment that will allow this. How do you think what should be the steps sort of to move in this direction? Because right now we are hyper focused and hyper productive, and we're trying to push as much into that 9, 10, 12-hour workday, whatever it may be. How do we make that space for a break? How do we make that space for a Friday night, drinks conversation, whatever it may be? Yeah.
I think it happen. I think it will happen. It is happening very organically. I don't know how it can be defined. There's still, like I remember when the pandemic started first, everybody in our office thought that this will be over in 21 days. Like we'll be back to office after 21 days, and so we used to have a call every single day in the morning in the first half, and the entire channel, the entire team used to be there on the call. And something or the other was happening as discussion. But once there was a lockdown 2.0, 3.0, and whatever, people realized that this is not a small term thing. This is something that is going to continue on. The daily calls stopped, and it was once a week, just a team catch-up call. And initially, we used to call each other for work. We used to try to have small, just like, how are you, what's happening in this and that. but eventually with time that changed, and we were discussing work throughout. And if it was a non-work call, it was, we knew when it was a non-work call, when it was happening or not happening. So I think it's happened very organically. We've defined that space with our colleagues, with our bosses, and that's, I mean, it'll take its own flow. I don't think a company can do a lot in defining, this is when you should have a just a casual catch up. Then it's not a casual catch up, it's a meeting ultimately. So it's a very organic process that has happened throughout the last year. I think it will continue like that.
Which is very, very fair, that it's got bound to be organic, and it's, people will make their own thing. But I think that brings me to another question, which is that today, given that all our workplaces look extremely alike because we're working purely virtually, right, and our ways of working are very similar to each other, which prior to the pandemic may have been different because they were happening under the umbrella of a certain office space. There were certain activities that were happening there. There were certain frameworks. Since those are out of the picture, how do we now infuse culture into a workplace in this digital environment? And again, open to it. Yeah.
Before you move on, I just want to add something to what we were discussing earlier. It's a very good question that you brought up, because there's actually a term for it. Zoom headaches, Zoom fatigue was a term, because, meetings, if you have a paid account, could stretch up to, 2 hours. So it's a real thing. I don't think I think it's just easy to say that it's organic. I think there is some responsibility of team leaders to set processes, to set behavior. You come on time to the meeting, you keep your camera on, others will keep their camera on and come on time. You ensure that you ask everybody how they are doing. I would do that. I know maybe in journalism is still a little more casual than a review meeting of a corporate space, but eventually after 6 months into it, I realized that, if people are not functioning, if they're upset, lonely, sad, they're not going to work well. I think team leaders need to make an effort to ask people how they're doing, how are they feeling today, is anyone COVID affected in their family? So I think as team leaders, we have to make that effort, and that's how our colleagues will then be sensitive to their teams or to each other. So, and I think COVID, while some companies did this in a more organized fashion, they sent out memos as to how team leaders should do it. A lot of us just did it because it was the right thing to do. So I think we need to set those things in motion. And it's important now that, people are more isolated and dealing with a lot of crises that workplaces hadn't seen 20 years before. So we need to make an effort, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in my case too, I think we had to come around, after, of course, the norms were relaxed, and we made a rule that we have to meet once in 2 weeks. We just have to meet the entire team, because, there is something missing. I mean, you can brainstorm on Zoom, but when you sit together as a team and you sit from morning to evening, and you're able to, I don't know, there's just something different. The human connection, like Namrata said, that does go a bit, that misses on Zoom. So so that's the culture that we brought about, that we better make sure that we meet as a team once in 2 weeks.
Yeah. So Arpita, actually on that, I think when the organizing committee also shared that little write-up with us on the theme for this conference, one thing that's actually stood out to me in that little write-up was the fact that yes, we're finding ways to sort of adapt to the tool. So like you said, can we brainstorm on Zoom? Yes. But there was also a very interesting question in that write-up, which I thought maybe we could, spend a couple of minutes on, which is, are we brainstorming the same way? So yes, we're working at finding ways to extend the way we used to work, but the form, the packaging of that is going to change, right? Like naturally, of course, coordinating a shoot on Zoom is not the same thing as doing it there, and your practices and the way you do that is going to change quite dramatically as well. So maybe Kayo, if you would just have to talk a little bit about that, and Arpita, you as well, in terms of of course, one is adaptability, but two is, have we also changed the way we work on these platforms altogether?
What I don't know if you asked the question of the way we work or the output of the work.
The way. Let's focus on the way we work.
Way we work.
Yeah.
I'll be very frank with you. It's not felt any different from being in person. You've lost the human touch, the human element, but you only felt that in the beginning because everything felt so alien. Zoom now has become a part of our lives. I know that I've got 2 Zoom calls a day. I know that I've got to do this. So in the beginning, I didn't know. I had never heard of Zoom before the pandemic. In fact, much into it is when I started. Everything was in person. I never believed in bringing my work home. So honestly, once we got through the pre-mumble and once we got through the initial uncomfortable factor of that, we're talking like this. I've had drinks with friends on Zoom. We reached that point to just relax. I don't think the way of working or the work ethic or the output has really changed. I mean, we'll know, in my case, we'll know when the film releases whether the film is good or not. So then that we'll figure. Right now,
no, but I meant from a, even from a creative point of view, the way you perhaps jam or the way you perhaps brainstorm.
I'll be very frank with you. It's become much more streamlined.
Okay.
Because if we say, listen, let's just sit from 4 to 6, and from 4 to 6 we work. In office, from 4 to 6 we fast, and we end up sitting at 5:30 and say, but we've not eaten anything. And I'm telling you, it's become a little more I'm a more organized person on Zoom.
Right.
That's genuinely my it's different for people, but it's just my personal way of. It's much more streamlined, happier, organized, and you do a lot more in the day. You don't have to travel.
Right. Okay. So sort of as we come to the close of this, because I also want to sort of bring in perhaps some audience questions. Again, this is open to all of you, but how do you think, the rules of digital are going to continue rewriting themselves for your, specific industry? And if you had to sort of, see a couple years down the line in terms of what those projections are, in terms of the way you work, the output of your work, the efficiency of your work, all of that. Do you still see that dramatically changing from what it is already? And if yes, what kind of changes should we expect?
Before we actually move on to that, I'd like to touch upon what you just began speaking of a couple of questions ago, was the culture, right? And also the culture of an organization in a digital age. And I feel very clearly that all the conversation that we've had so far is about the human mind adapting to digital tools and digital era because of being in a pandemic, and therefore talking about its outcomes. Culture has got nothing to do with it. Culture is the human fabric of an organization that needs to remain intact, whether you are functioning virtually or whether you're functioning in person. If respect is at the thread of an organization, if not sending emails after hours is at the thread of an organization, if giving everyone a voice to speak at the table in a meeting is at the thread of an organization, it is up to the organization to maintain that culture, no matter where the status of working is, online or offline. And that is something that cannot be replaced. It is the humans that need to bring that in continuously. And it is the leaders, like Anandita said, that need to bring into the boardrooms and into the conversation continuously. So at no point is the digital age giving us a license to forgo the culture or the thoughtfulness that you have toward each other as humans. Yes, it is pushing us to a point of being more precise and productive in our day. Like Kayo said, perhaps we organize in the way you conduct your day, but not at the cost of basic human culture, right? And that's to me, it stays important, and it's a no-brainer. It shouldn't be compromised upon.
Yeah. I think it's also fair, I think, sort of tying this back to what Anandita said in terms of senior leaders definitely have, and I think, and I think what you are saying is that each senior leader can't be pulling in their own direction by their whim and fancy. They have to be dictated by what that organization is all about. So I think having that conversation.
Yeah, it has to belong to the ethos of that organization.
Ethos of that organization.
Absolutely.
Yeah, fair. And I think that is maybe there's more want of those kind of conversations, in terms of, because we are moving into more of that virtual way of working. And I don't know what tomorrow is, even post-pandemic, is going to look like, right? Maybe our lives may not change dramatically. In which event, I think having those conversations on, hey, this is the kind of place we are, is important. It just to keep continuing to imbibe that energy, because I think in a physical space it's more contagious. You walk into a place, there are energy fields. There's a certain atmosphere about a place that lets you understand and put a finger on, okay, this is what the expect, and on the learning is also quicker, right? We mirror what we see faster in person. But I think not having that physical interface doesn't discount for the fact that we can't have, we shouldn't have those conversations. In fact, maybe we double down on that and take an added effort towards saying that, hey, this is who we are. And even if you don't get to see that in person, this is who we'd like you to be, as long as you're with us.
Absolutely. I'm just going to say something here. So all of us, I noticed, we've been talking about how things were for us at office, and now we're not having our water cooler conversations and meeting colleagues, etc. But I'm just taking a look at all the names here on the screen, all the students who will now join offices, and their culture is going to be completely different. They will not have this opportunity to experience what we have in the last few years.
Sure.
For them, it's probably going to be normal to not have met colleagues for like a year, like how Ash said, because we have 2 junior writers in our team who joined, I think, in March, and they haven't met each other. They're in one team, they're the ones who work closely with each other, but they've not met each other. So I'm seeing the rest of the names on the screen here. These are all KCBMM students, and by the time they join offices, this whole idea where we're worrying that the atmosphere won't feel the same, and we feel the need to reach out to colleagues, it's going to be different for them. It's going to be easier for them. It's
without a doubt. I
coming with a hangover, of how.
I could agree with you more, Sonali. In fact, in the last year, our agency has hired about 150 people. So we were 350 before the pandemic. Now we're 500. And 150 people who I have never seen. So that's crazy, and that's a big percentage of as this total strength of the organization, which has purely been hired in this kind of a time, and may continue to work like this, even if, particularly because our business is digital and we don't feel the need to be in the office anymore. Right. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I get it. Yeah. All right, and sorry. So I, Namrata, before you hijacked my question, the last question that I kind of wanted to leave with all of you is your projections in your own industry in terms of how digital is going to continue paving the way.
So I'll tell you how I feel about it in our industry, and this is kind of how it's gone about. I always felt that, and when you say digital, whether it's like OTT and digital or even the Zoom digital, we were always moving towards digital, no matter what. We were always moving towards digital. Even our meetings, we started initiating a lot of Skype meetings even before the pandemic. We started doing conference calls and all of that. All I feel that the pandemic's kind of done is accelerated the process. Is that we've gotten there much faster than we would have without it. So in our case, we've yes, we will find a sense of normalcy soon, whether it'll be people are saying by Diwali or December or whenever. But the digital process for the film industry, because see, film, sport, these kind of industries need in person. You have to be there to shoot, and you have to be there to play a sport or whatever it is. But the digitalization, the OTT-ness has just sped it up in a very good way, I would say. It's streamlined it, and something that would have taken us 5 years has happened in this course of time.
Right.
I kind of agree with that there's no going back really. So the comfort of meeting online and getting your work done in a precise time, improving efficiency, I think that's here to stay. I think the travel will happen more for leisure now instead of traveling to see another city for a meeting.
But don't get me wrong. We will travel to work. I mean, we have some part of the pre-pandemic. You will travel for shoots and whatnot, maybe some huge meetings and all of that once the pandemic may or may not be eradicated. But the broader spectrum of the digital atmosphere is very much here to stay, and it's kind of what you should invest in more than anything.
Yeah, it's been like a leap into digitization for the entire world, and that part is here to stay, of course. And a lot of companies actually are promoting work from home even after, like, I think about till 2025. So that's here to stay. We're going to have probably next year the conference online too,
Yeah, sorry about that. We're going to continue doing this. Yeah. All right. Anybody else before we open to questions?
Aditya, so just to kind of, close in on the journalism bit, I think the way Kayo put it, it's the same for journalism. We were anyway headed to a lot of online meetings, WhatsApp groups for sharing ideas, and digital journalism and even social media journalism actually now as opposed to print. COVID has kind of accelerated all of that. It's also helped companies cut the excess fat. And I think we have to give this a year. I think it would be a bit premature to say, okay, there's going to be some miraculous difference end of this year. I think we need to give it, say, 12 more months to see how the global industry resettles, to see how the Indian industry will resettle. But there has been a huge churn and a lot of organizations, media organizations have shut down. So I think it is a bit of like survival of the fittest, and we'll have to probably give it 12 more months to just see how the dust settles.
Yeah, fair enough. I also think, I mean, and after the dust does settle, and I mean, this is already ongoing, and is the way we work in terms of collaboration, also like boundaries, we're talking about physical boundaries for a large part of this conversation, maybe within the same city or maybe within the same country, but those same physical boundaries are going to dissolve internationally. Right, it's not going to matter where you are literally, because once you get used to that way of work, just that idea of an infusion of ideas and collaboration throughout the spectrum that opens up is also going to be brilliant. So I think, yeah, definitely a lot of exciting things to look forward to. Okay, should we open to any audience questions if there may be?
Hi everyone, Sudha ma'am here. Thank you for the lovely and lively panel discussion. It was sheer joy because we get to see it all at home. And we as teachers also are getting used to this FWH, work from home situation, where we have not met our first year students and we are still managing a lecture with them. And they know us as various people who teach them but don't know us as people. So it's really a fun situation. So I will like the audience to have whatever questions you have, please put it on chat and then we can get the questions answered. Yes, we have one. It just says that I hope it doesn't come to offline meetings becoming awkward. Yeah, okay, fine. Other people who have questions, please put it on chat. So in the meantime, Manjula ma'am is back, so you can talk to her.
Hi everybody. I should not be looking at the screen to look here. Okay. So nice to see all my students in such interesting positions. And panel discussion has always been about getting the best from the alumni. So you should take pride in the fact that we have chosen you people to be a part of this discussion. And you have set an example for all our current batches that, this is how you have to do things and work very hard. The panel discussion may be a little, I may not have heard every bit of it because I was just somewhere else for a few other things. But let me tell you that the conference has become very good, and people like you have made it for the interest for the new batches. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, we can.
Namrata being from the first batch, to Arpita being from the fourth batch, to Anandita being from the seventh batch, Sonali from the eighth batch. Aditya did a fantastic job as a PG student from MAEMA. He graduated about 4 years back, I must say. Am I right, Aditya?
5 years.
5 years.
Yes.
So I think it is overwhelming for me. I take pride in all of your efforts. I may be the same old Manjula ma'am who takes a lot of things for granted by just calling you people up and say, listen, I don't care, you better be there on the 19th. But as a teacher, I think I have the privilege with my students. And I've been telling the rest of them also that whenever I call, don't say I'm busy and I cannot come and this and that. Please give us those half an hour, 15 minutes. And this time you people have given us 2 hours. Okay, and pandemic and the worries and the pressure of not being able to do things the way we have been doing all these years. So before we wind up this session, I want people to put their questions on the chat box. But I must tell you one thing, that with each student who is there on the panel right now, they are like jewels, they are like achievers. The people who have worked very hard to do what they are today. And listen to me when I say this very carefully, they're not stopped there. They're going to work further and make things better, make their goals difficult for themselves and do very well. Okay, so whether it was print or whether it was television, whether it was films, whether it was Google, Namrata has worked for the longest period with Ogilvy and Mather before she joined Google. So, anytime any agency representation I want, Namrata, please come. It is advertising and you have to come, So the first 3-4 batches of mine were like my resources for so many years. And I will continue to cherish that relationship that I have with my students. And let me tell you this, when I say this with a lot of pride, that my connect with the alumni is really great. Arpita has a very interesting, career. And I wish you all the best, Arpita. And you must do these sessions with our general students in KC about environment. Sonali is doing a fantastic job. I take pride in Sonali's being, doing so well in the magazine part of journalism, which is not easy. And when I spoke about Anandita, I also remember Anandita as somebody who's working with the magazine, but now being an author. Wonderful, Anandita. Great job. Keep writing. Bring good writing to the college also. We would be very happy to do some workshops with our students. Each one of you, Kayo is the easiest to be told about, Nobody wants me to introduce Kayo to you all. Like, he's such a sweetheart. And I don't say this because I have to impress him. He's been such a sweet student all the 3 years. And I want everyone to learn from him. I think he's doing some of the best projects now. I don't want to say that unless until Kayo wants to say it himself. But see, the work should be there, but the humility part should always be there in what we are doing. And these are the values which you get from your family and your college where you have studied. So keep doing the great job. Aditya, thank you so much for accepting. We were wondering kisko bulana chahiye, who can bring all of them together. Somebody who will be a great communicator and who could convince everyone to speak on such virtual platforms. Because if you do it on an auditorium, it's a very different experience. And I think Aditya was doing a fantastic job. All the best, Aditya, for your career.
Thank you.
The questions have started coming. So Aditya, you can start reading them.
Sure.
Thank you so
Also,
much.
after all that praise, you consider us booked for life now. Whenever you call us, we're there.
And I'll also add that the students are really, really lucky to have Sudha ma'am and Manjula ma'am. you will, when you go out in the world, you will cherish them for teaching you everything that you need to know.
I cherished them even while they were yelling at me in college.
Precisely why you will cherish them.
You know, somebody just told me from the student group.
Aditya, do I have your permission to speak right now?
The part 1 students.
Please,
And then
please.
the part 2 students say, hey, don't be scared. She's such a chilled out person. So I don't know which version to believe in. So the fact that you all are so having such pleasant memories of your time with Casey. And of course, we had some difficult situations also, but we all have swam through this, right from Namrita's batch. I don't want Namrita to share a lot of secrets which are there between that batch and me, where we started with, okay, ye paper hai, isme kya karna hai. So long story short, we all have been learning. We all are going to be students all our life. So I think that is a message I want to give all these students and participants today who are present here for the panel discussion. It's such a nice feeling. I think Sudhama will relate with that you may have paper presentations, you may have invited speakers, but people who have gone from these courses and are doing well in the industry are the best testimonials of what you have to do with what you have learned to what you have to work for, Sonali has worked very difficult, I'm sure, to get to that position. Yes, Sonali, do you agree with me? It's not easy to be having such a good space in a niche section of magazines.
I do. It's taken me 10 years to accept this position.
Just imagine. Yes, Anandita?
I mean, I feel such pride and joy when I come across people in the industry who say they are KCBMM grads. One of the earliest I had met was
Brads and all.
Vadvani, who was doing a PR. He kept calling me, and as journalists, we ignored
Which
PR.
Vaswani?
Parikshit Vadvani.
Ah, Vadvani, not Vaswani.
I was ignoring him, as journalists do. And then he said, I'm from KCBMM. I'm like, fine, let's talk. So, I feel there is KCBMM.
No, I know. So now it's not KCBMM. Other batches and other students will get very hurt. You have to say mass media students of
Mass media students, fine. I know only the BMM grad, but ma'am, we have such fond memories of you. I was the second batch. Yes, it was, a smaller program then. We had your attention all to just this program.
Yes.
But we all have such fond memories. And we are all in touch now, There's a WhatsApp group. We keep meeting. So there's been a
You won't believe, Anandita, I was so sad for Priyadarshini not making it to the Grammy. I kept looking at the entire, I mean, it doesn't make any difference to me, but it made a difference. Will she make it or not? Because she was nominated.
That was huge.
What was the category? Best New Age album. Yeah.
So, but her being
couldn't make it.
Was huge. So all of those victims of our classmates, I mean, we've really actually all kind of gotten back together in touch now, and we have very fond memories. And
yes.
So much for, I know you've always...
Nadir teaches very regularly in the department, and this is a very subtle hint I'm giving everybody. If you have the time, please tell us. We want you people to come. Kayo, which is the next project? We can see you as an actor, as a director.
I don't act, please, and this introduction of mine has to change. Last time also. No, my film, my short film that I directed, the teaser released today, in fact.
Okay.
16th April, it releases on Netflix.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Share the title. We would look forward to the screen, to the release.
The anthology of 4 short films.
Yes. Excellent.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Great work.
Looking forward, yeah. All right. Should we
one last thing before you start reading the questions, Aditya.
Sure.
All of you, whenever there is an opening, it's only the mass media department of KC College. This is very subtle.
Absolutely.
So please help our batches to be placed. Internships, wherever they are. Please send the details to us. We'll be very happy to. We have got about 800-900 students in the department, and some of the brightest of bright students. Okay. Yes. Great job, Aditya. तेरे को
But
टाटा
Sonali,
बाय बोल रहे हो देखो।
you'll get an email from me on this today only. Don't worry.
Great, great, Aditya. Thank you so much.
Okay, fantastic.
Please
All
carry on.
right.
Please carry on.
Aditya, just a second before you continue to the questions. I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to excuse myself because I'm in office for a 5 p.m. meeting, and I think I should start.
I know
heading.
it's a working Friday. I'm so sorry, Sonali.
No,
for
no, no.
delaying
This
it.
is
Thank
totally
you so
fine.
much.
I had 3 to 5 blocked completely, so it's really nice, seeing alumni and seeing you, meeting you. In fact, like you mentioned, I got in touch with Manjula ma'am after a gap of I think 2 years because I was seeing the CVs of few students, and then someone from KCBMM had applied and mentioned her as a reference, and that's how I decided to call her and say hello again.
Okay.
So good luck, guys.
Sonali.
Nice.
Thank you for your time.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Sonali. Bye. Take care.
See you.
Bye. I should also be excused. I'm getting a call from the principal. Things haven't changed here much. Namrata, I'm just going up to see the Princey. Namrata, you would like
Yes,
to talk?
ma'am. Let it go. It's been 15 years. For everyone else who doesn't know, I got on stage at the college auditorium and I invited the Princey up on stage.
No, not like that. She said, now, and बहुत मैंने prompt किया था, ऐसे ये लोग enter होंगे, आप ऐसे बोलोगे, you have to say like this and all. So the best thing is, 2 of them who were supposed to give the bouquet during the felicitation, they were so overtrained that the door opens and they just go and give it to the door. The people who are entering, like, just take it. I was told I'm supposed to hand over the bouquet, so just take this. This is what happened in 2002, I think. And then I asked Namrata to start the session, and then she was already very tired of too many instructions. So she says, I request the Princey to come and say a few words. And the Princey looks at me and I wanted to melt. I wanted to die there. On a lighter
That
note,
one's for the
all
book.
best to all
Thank
of
you. Thank you, ma'am.
I need to be excused. You please carry on with your questions and then you can end the session. Thank you so much. Yeah. Bye.
All right. Okay. So let's, I think there are 2 questions. Sudha ma'am, would you like the student to read out his own question, or?
The reason why I made them write it in the chat box is that sometimes it takes in a lot of time.
Sure.
So I would like you to read the question and address it to
Okay,
them.
sure. So I think the first question is from Fatima, which says, Kayo sir mentioned that his work was a lot more streamlined and organized in the online format. When COVID is over and the world goes back to normalcy and offline, would he and other esteemed panelists want to continue with online?
I think we kind of already addressed this.
Also address that, yes. Yeah.
Is that, yeah, I mean, this is where the world is moving and the world's going to move forward, and you like it, don't like it, embrace it. This is where it's going.
Right. All right. Then there's another one by Sanjana, which says, one second. Would you say that the churn out the excess fat, it has become a perspective from the professional and business side, but you may also need to consider the human part of it, as there has been so many layoffs in the industries. It's also affected the people in the workplace, compromising their work-life balance. Views on that? In any of you want to take that question in terms of, yes, we've spoken about, for those of us who've been lucky enough to have jobs, navigating and managing that, but it's also been a tough period in terms of all our industries have seen some sort of downsizing. So would any of you want to address that and navigating that?
I think I use this phrase, Aditya, so I'll take this.
Okay.
There's been, I mean, a lot of the layoffs have been in print. I'll speak about the print industry because that's the one I know, has been very inhumane. It's not been done well. One of the reasons I quit HT Media was because I was very upset by the way my colleagues had been fired. So I think, yes, of course, we have to be very sensitive to the way it's been done. But I think when I meant churn out excess fat, I also meant in terms of the unnecessary processes and formalities, like, things that can be done over a 1-hour phone call or over a Zoom meeting, sometimes we had to fly, like editors needed to fly down from Bombay to Delhi for a 1-hour meeting, with the board. So when I say trim out excess fat, it's also about the unnecessary processes and formalities. The firing of people is not it was not humane. It happened really badly actually in the media. So that's not something that I endorse.
Right. Okay. Anybody else wants to talk from their perspective? Ash or Namrata?
No, I think this covers it pretty well.
Okay. All right. So I think that's about it. I think those were two, three of our main questions. So that brings us then to the close of this conversation, guys. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you. I had a ball. Almost forgot that there were 150 other people tuned in, but I hope the rest of them also had as much of a great time as I did. Thank you so much for making time for this and joining me in this conversation.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. Have a nice evening and enjoy the weekend. Okay, I'll see you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.